Hi.
Do you have a Wi-Fi password I can use?
Yeah, yes. Cynthia, you have a Wi-Fi password? Sorry, your Wi-Fi password? I think I have it. We are live.
Notice is hereby given pursuant to Texas Annotated Civil Statutes, Article 6252-17. The city of Smithville will conduct a council meeting in public hearing April 12, 2021 at 6 p.m. The council members of city this is broadcast live on YouTube and will be recorded and available on the city website after the meeting is over. Call the meeting to order and Mr. Brown will lead us for an introduction.
Let's pray. God, we thank you this day, this evening. Pray, Father God, for wisdom from above for all our leaders. We thank you for their diligently to do this meeting amongst our people. We pray that we all be on one accord business of this community. Pray that everything be in order, peace in order, no confusion, vision. Pray just for everybody to be on accord in this great city. Thank you now for what you're doing and what you're about to do. That's each and every one of us. Pray.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, liberty and justice. Up until we haven't been meeting in public often enough, we're all forgetting the Texas flag. So at this point, I have a proclamation for Black Read. First, the National Public Safety. Whereas emergencies can occur at any time, fire, police, fire, or emergency medical services. Whereas when an emergency occurs, the prompt response of police officers, firefighters, and paramedics is critical protection of preservation property. Whereas the safety of our police officers and firefighters depend upon the quality and accuracy of information obtained from citizens who telephone the Smithville Emergency Communications. And whereas public safety telecommunicators are the first and most critical contact our citizens have with emergency services. And whereas public safety telecommunicators are the single vital link for our police officers and firefighters for monitoring their activities by radio, providing them information and ensuring their safety. Whereas public safety telecommunicators of the city of Smithville contributed substantially to the apprehension of suppression of fires and treatment of patients. Whereas each dispatcher has exhibited compassion, understanding, and professionalism during the performance of their job the past year. Thank you. Oh, yeah, this is one. Therefore, be it resolved that the city council of Smithville, Texas, declares the week of April 11th through 17th, 2021 to be National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week in Smithville in honor of the men and women whose diligence and professionalism our city and citizens play. This is National Public Safety Telecommunications Week, April 11th, 17th, 2021. Passed and approved 12th day of April. We have another proclamation honoring a citizen who has contributed a lot to the community of Smithville, Shirley Ann Martin. Whereas Shirley Ann Martin, you knew her, was born November 7th, 1948, Grant McGrath Jr. and Donville McGrath. And whereas she moved to Smithville in 25 with the love of her life, Lieutenant Colonel Kurt Martin, who was deceased in 2017. And whereas the Martins helped to establish the Smithville Community Gardens, the nonprofit organization in 2010, together with the Mount Pilgrim Baptist Church Unity and the original Smithville Community Garden founders, Judge Ron Jones, Judge Clarence Culberson, Robert Colbert, and Annette Anderson. And whereas in 2013, Sam Martin served as manager of Smithville Food Pantry, leading the fundraising efforts for the new building, which opened in November 2018. And whereas she was an impactful member of every community which she was a part, especially Smithville, Sam was named the 2014 Citizen of the Year by the Smithville Area Chamber of Commerce. Whereas Sam Martin passed away on February 24, 2021, survived by siblings Judith Kay, Michael Lynn, Steve Marie, and Roy Lee, her son Zachary, Mike Olivia, and her two grandchildren, Cadence and Conrad, all of whom are treasured. Therefore, be it resolved that the Council of Smithville, Texas, goes April 12, 2021, Day, Smithville, for all citizens to join me and the council in expressing our sincere appreciation for her unwavering dedication and service to the city of Smithville. Passed and approved this 12th day of April 2021. Okay, moving on, the next item is approval of the minutes for March 9th, 2021 council meeting. Council, you have the minutes, and this is the directions. Not, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor Morgan, I make a motion that we accept the minutes from the March 8th, 2021 council meeting.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to item 6. At this point, we'll hear recommendation from planning and zoning on 2 items. A, on a multiple variance request, including a 5-foot height regulation to increase building height from 35 feet to 40 feet and change from 2.5 stories to 3-story, 2 rear yard setbacks, 1 15-foot rear yard variance for Highway 71, and a 10-foot rear variance setback to adjoin south property, Eleanor Business Park, Lot 1, acres point 5020 or 90283, property owner, Aaron Street, LLC, agent Chase Hodges. And item B, on a preliminary plat of Chips Haven, R number 49198, owner Chips Haven, LLC, agent Devco Engineering. Mr. Reilly, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Is this on? Okay.
No, it's not. You have to hit the button.
It's on. I turn it off.
Okay, you have to speak very close to it for people to hear.
You can take it out.
Yeah.
Getting a lot of instructions here. I'll do my best. We'll begin with the Hill Road Development, item 1 from the March meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission. The property, as the mayor has already said, is Eleanor Business Park, Lot 1, half acre, 0.5020 acres. The owner is Bird Street LLC. The agent who spoke to us about the property was Charles Hodge. This property, I think you're all familiar with. It's kind of a triangular shaped property over near the Subway sandwich shop center. It is currently zoned C3, commercial 3, which is highway commercial. multifamily is permitted and by right in C3, provided that the multifamily dimension standards are met. Specifically, the maximum building height is 2.5 stories or 35 feet. And the setbacks are 25 feet front, side, and rear. By comparison, the setbacks for C3 are 10 feet side and rear with the same height restrictions. The variance request is for both height and setback. It's a request for a variance from 2.5 stories to 3 stories, from 35 feet to 40 feet. The setback variances are from 25 feet to 10 feet along the property line at Marshall Highway 71.
Excuse me, Mr. Reed, would you please speak louder? There's people in the back that can't hear. Thank you.
I'll do my best. And along the adjoining property to the south, it's a request for a setback variance from 25 feet to 15 feet. The reason given for the request all have mostly to do with the idea of being able to maximize the property by having 3 floors. It would be able to have 3 full floors of apartment buildings, or a total of 9 apartments in the 3 building complexes. The setbacks would allow for more green space, structural and mechanical spaces above the ceilings for the infrastructure. And again, the setbacks will allow there to be 3 buildings, more in a campus-like setting, single block building. There was no public comment to these requests, and the Planning and Zoning Commission voted unanimously to recommend to City Council the granting of the variance request. Any questions? Yes.
Yes, these are apartments or condos?
They are apartments. In the packet, I think there might be a reference to condominium. That was discussed with the Planning and Zoning Commission and clarified that his intent was apartments to rent, not condos to sell.
So there will be 9 apartments.
Yes. 3 by 3.
Thank you.
That's 9 total or 9 per building?
9 total. There would be some 3-bedroom, 2 baths, and there's 2-bedroom, 2 baths. 1 apartment per floor per building.
So I got a question on the petition. It does reference 3 apartment condo homes. So is that going to be changed to 3 apartment homes?
That was discussed and clarified at the hearing, the public hearing, and he said that there intended to be apartments, not condominiums.
Okay.
They would not be sold individually.
Okay.
That question was asked and answered specifically.
Okay. Thank you.
On the height, so in comparison, the billboard we have down there, how tall that is, I mean, are these going to be that tall?
They would be a total of 40 feet. What that would be 3 floors. He said the construction would allow for 9-foot ceilings in each one of the floors, plus extra space in the ceiling area for plumbing, sewer, HVAC, those kind of things.
Robert, do you know on that billboard?
57 feet, sir.
57, so it's actually less than billboard. Okay, thank you.
On just an Aggie mic, but I think that's 17 feet.
I think it is.
Got another one for you. The renditions that are in the packet, they're the real modern apartment complexes. Is that the rendition that he's looking at, or is that just an example?
No, he said those were examples for the type of structure they want to do. They had not finalized their plans on that, so that's a representation for discussion. He did not represent that that's what the structures would actually look like.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, I was understanding that this was just an example of what the finished product will look like, but this is not what they're proposed to,
That's
the
where-
finish to it. It will be a softer, more Smithvillian
Well,
kind
you
of
know,
look.
but
But I'm not an architect.
I'm not either, and those are subjective terms. He did say it was to give the idea that it was more of a campus-like 3 structures rather than a single structure, but and with open spaces in the parking lots. He made no representations, just specifically said these weren't intended to tie into that construction.
Thank you.
One question on the, another question on the parking. Is there some number per unit? They met that, correct?
That's correct.
What number is that?
I'm sorry, Mike, I don't have it handy.
Whatever that number, Jack, you know?
It's 2 per unit.
Fantastic, thanks.
If I remember correctly, there's 21 spaces.
21 parking spaces.
The second matter was taken up at the April 6th meeting of planning and zoning. It is a request for an additional.
Excuse me, Mr. Reedy, would you please try to check your mic to see if it's on, because I'm not hearing you well.
Maybe different.
It's not even on. We did check the batteries, but apparently some are older than we thought.
Yeah, so am I. I'll try not to break this one. Thank you for allowing me a space to put my notes in. Microphone. No, I appreciate it. We'll give this out. I can't handle engineering projects alone. Although I'm a history major. This was a public hearing on the review of a preliminary plat for a subdivision known as Smithville, located at the former location of Smithville Hospital and Towers Nursing Home area. The plat was presented. Maybe I do need someone. The plat presented, it was the first plat in the packet. We'll try that. Can you hear me? Okay. I'll try not to turn it on. The plat presented to the Planning and Zoning Commission for review is the first plat that's in the City Council's packet. Planning and Zoning Commission did not receive the other plats that are in your packet. We were just working from that first plat that's in your package. The city representatives that were there for the meeting were asked if the city had any particular concerns that needed to be brought to the attention of the commission, and the response was no. At that point, we asked Mr. Herta, Kate Herta, and representatives of BEFCO to give their presentation of the proposed preliminary plat. Mr. Brooke Herta also provided some additional information, though he said that he was actually not an owner or participating in the project itself. There was a great deal of concern about the number of lots, the sizes of the lots, the narrowness of the lots. There was discussion about there had been some talk in the community that perhaps Mill Street was going to be extended in and through the proposed subdivision. And questions were asked about alleys, or actually the lack of alleys in the proposed plat. The general response to that was that the project was not economically feasible if the lots were made larger, or there were fewer of them, or alleyways. The improvements that would have to be done, water, sewer, paving, all those kind of things. Having smaller lots would mean that the project itself is not economically feasible. Well, they did not have the additional information or additional plats addressing drainage, existing sewer and tie-ins, those kind of things. They were asked specifically to discuss those matters in detail, which in particular, the representative, the engineer from Bethlehem Engineering, gave a very good description of what was proposed for the property. There was one public comment by email from Governor Munchie, who resides across from this proposed project. I believe that's in your packet. I won't read it at this point. In general, the concern was the additional traffic that would bring to the area. That there are people that use those areas for walks and recreation. And so those are the general concerns. There were no other public comments. Planning and zoning voted to give tentative approval of the preliminary plat so that this matter could proceed to the city council for review.
Question. I was on part of that Zoom call, and when y'all were talking to, I guess it was Mr. Herda and Brooke Herda, it was very, very difficult. Were you able to hear all of their responses?
From Brooke Hurdle, the answer is no. That's why we went back to Chad. And if you were on the call, maybe you remember that I attempted to summarize what I thought I heard from Mr. Herda, and then asked Chad to explain if I had summarized it incorrectly or if they had additional information they wanted to provide.
And
My
this,
recollection was that generally his statement was it was not going to be economically feasible, though they would have liked to have larger lots and fewer lots.
I missed part of that. Did you all talk about any kind of sidewalks in Colorado for this particular development? I know it doesn't show anything in Colorado.
I don't believe so. I have no recollection of discussing sidewalks. We concentrated on the size and shape of the lots themselves and whether or not they met minimum standards of the subdivision ordinance.
Did you talk about, like I said, I only heard, I was having a very difficult time hearing about the block size. I mean, as far as the length of the blocks, did y'all discuss that as far as what our ordinance talks about?
The blocks, or do you mean the lots
The
themselves?
block, the actual block size.
There was no discussion of that.
Okay, thank you.
In the beginning, when the first meeting happened with the Smithville authorities, it stated here for people to make bids. We've been handed a lot of paperwork tonight that it's hard to go through. But in this general term of sale, Smithville Hospital Authority, as a fee simple owner of the property, will establish the following restrictions to regulate the structural integrity, the appearance and the use of property, and the improvements placed on it. And on here it states that people are placing their bids. The property shall be developed and used as single family housing. And the second thing was each home shall be no less than 1,500 square foot. And so I'm hoping that this is being conveyed forward.
Neither I nor planning and zoning was provided that information that you just read from. I have no personal knowledge of the information you just read from. I have no doubt that that's correct.
It was part of a bid package.
But it was not part of what was presented to planning and zoning for review.
Correct.
So the plat that you looked at, was that the only plat that you saw for that area?
Yes.
Okay. So when you guys in planning and zoning, your committee looks at the plat, the preliminary plat, you go ahead and you use the subdivision regulation more or less to say, okay, we're going to make sure that this plat covers these ordinances.
Correct.
Okay. So one of the things in the ordinance talks about fire protection and adequate access and egress for fire and emergency services. Is that something we all discussed?
That was not discussed.
Okay, and that's in our regulation for subdivisions.
That's correct. I'm familiar with the subdivision regulations.
Okay,
There also were no internal roads there or alleyways, so the access is existing on the perimeter streets. That's obviously one.
correct.
we received when we arrived here from a gentleman named Jason Ramo. He states in here that as first, if the preliminary plat meets all city code requirements, then the city council must approve it per TLGC 212.005. Do you have that?
No,
Okay.
Hi, I'm Jason Ramel. I've
Hello, Jason.
been retained by the city of Smithville since 2017-ish on land use matters. I'm the attorney for the city on these. And so that's an email that I sent this afternoon before I left my office in Bulverde and headed over here.
Thank you.
So I will, just a little bit of context. The state legislature has severely restricted this body's ability to use any kind of discretion when approving plats. Like I said, I noted in that's the code section that says if it meets code, this body has no choice but to approve.
So
Okay.
you're talking about the House Bill 3167?
Well, that section's been in there for a little while. The whole chapter got completely revamped with 2019. Every city in this state has had growing pains related to it. So there's a lot of ins and outs. But the bottom line is that cities don't have a lot of discretion.
And it was updated in January of 2021. Are you aware of that?
Well, that hasn't been passed yet. That legislative session's that's still in session. All right, the legislature for the 2021 is still in session.
Okay. That's what they've got on the website. That's where we were directed to go to do the research. So where, I couldn't find 212.005.
Okay. Well, if you go to chapter 212, take the local government code. I looked at it before I wrote that email. Where it talks about so 212.005 approval by municipality required. The municipal authority responsible for approving plats must approve a plat or replat that is required to be prepared under this subchapter and that satisfies all applicable regulations.
Regulations meaning our ordinances for,
The city's ordinances
Correct.
and the state law.
okay,
As long as it meets all those,
okay.
the city has no choice but to approve it.
And if it doesn't,
And if it doesn't, then the city can deny it. City can deny it, approve it with conditions, or approve it. Either way, thank you. Either way, if it's anything less than a full-on approval, then the applicant has the ability to fix whatever we said is wrong and bring it back and have an unlimited amount of time to bring it back. But we have to cite, when we say we're gonna disapprove it, for example, we have to cite to the code section that they have violated.
that's correct, and that can be done in writing.
It must be done in writing.
Right, it has to be done in writing within 30 days if it's disapproved. It clearly articulates exactly why we would want to disapprove it.
Correct.
So it doesn't necessarily have to be lined out during this particular meeting, but it has to be clearly articulated in writing to these folks.
Well, I tell you, unless it's discussed in this meeting, it doesn't happen.
Correct. I mean,
So
when it's
we need to go back
discussed,
section by section.
yes,
We can do that. What I found is very helpful is if you have whatever engineer reviewed it for the city,
correct,
say these are the problems.
correct.
And we just kind of adopt that as when we deny it or approve with conditions, say
Okay.
per attachment A or whatever.
So you're telling me this house, this is not passed yet? So
I don't know what you're referring to. So
House Bill 3167, it was updated January 21, updates are highlighted.
I'm
It
not
doesn't
sure.
say that it's that they're still working on it, it's.
Well, I know the state legislature is still in session. So
Okay,
which House bill was it?
it's House Bill 3167.
even if it was passed, it would not was on an emergency basis, would not be effective. So, next fiscal year.
citizens before we started this.
Okay.
Well, I'm seeing, what I see from TML is House Bill 3167 is legislation that becomes effective on September 1, 2019.
Okay.
That's what Texas Municipal League.
That's where I'm at, Texas
Okay.
Municipal League.
Yeah, so that's what we're talking about. All the changes that they made really restricted when the city can do things.
Mhm.
I guess that's what I didn't pay attention to the House Bill number. I just know what the final legislation was.
I just want to make sure I'm following the right regulation.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So I'm not sure, they probably didn't even touch 212.05. And I don't think they did. They touched everything else though.
Right, it's not in here.
Yeah. So,
So I have some questions on, so as far as parking in our ordinance, we've got a lot of lots along Ninth Street, 50-foot lots. So does it require, is there anything in there about parking, about, you're gonna have more than 2 vehicles, or you have 3? Is there anything built in there? I mean, are they required to have a set, I know they're set back, obviously, but from a parking perspective, is that anywhere in the ordinance?
The number of required off-street parking for residents is in the statute. At this point, of the review by the Planning and Zoning Commission, the lots, as you see, just show the lots themselves. There's no construction on them at this point. Proposed, we weren't given schematics for questions were asked specifically whether these were going to be 1-story or 2-story buildings. We got the answer of yes to both from different hurdles. I asked a follow-up question, maybe requiring any variances in order to have 2-story homes. The response was no, that they would not ask for variances. That I was referred to a website. I wanted to look at property that houses that would be conforming. But at this point, in order to have a single-family home on a lot of a conforming size, I believe it's 2 off-street parking. And I would presume that they would not be able to build homes on that unless they provide for the adequate parking within the parameters of the lots.
The question on the fire, I guess these lots would have 7 foot on each side, 10 foot on the side of the house.
7.5 for single, 10 for two.
For 2, then 20 feet, and then the 60-foot lots. The house would have to be 30-foot wide. If it's a 2-story house, because you have to be able to get to the back. We're talking about you got to get to the back of the lot, right? And if it's 300 feet deep, as far as fire, can we get hoses back that far if they build something back there? Because some of these are 260 feet deep. An issue, Jack. They can pull you out as being fire.
It's not an issue as far as getting hoses back there.
Right, or getting to a fire, I guess.
I can't speak, I'm not the chief, but as far as fire marshal, but we usually carry, anywhere from 150 to 200 foot crosslays on our trucks. And most of the houses, as far as the house structure itself, now accessory building might be farther in the rear yard. But as far as okay, got it. Talk to Mike, Jack.
Yeah, as far as accessory buildings, they're going to be in the backyard, but most of the houses should be. I'm not saying we haven't seen it yet, but 25-foot front road setback, they're going to be 25, 30 foot off the front road. So that's not going to be an issue at all.
So, 27 lots, and you have 2 cars per 27, let's say it's 2-person family, most people, that'd be 54, right? Most people have 2 cars, so now it's 108 vehicles that have to park somewhere. So is that even talked about as far as parking?
Well, you just did the math on.
I did. That's a lot of cars.
The question was asked whether or not there would be parking along the streets. It's a matter of city compliance, what's allowed for parking. And frankly, not a consideration for planning and zoning when we look at this flat.
Right, okay. When does that become a consideration?
I would refer that to the city manager, although that sounds like an enforcement issue to me.
Because Garwood's very narrow, I drove that today, and if you were gonna park on Garwood on both sides, just like over in Bastrop or in Kyle or where they build like this. Now, Colorado would probably be impossible to park on Colorado, 'cause it's a main thoroughfare. And then you've got 9th Street, which is nice and wide, you could probably park on 9th Street. But, I just wondered if planning and zoning considered any of that, looking at the plan.
We did discuss, parking, off-site parking, parking in congestion in Colorado, since it's a main entryway into, the town and connects to 9th Street. Where I reside.
And backing out of driveways. Most people don't back into their driveways, so they have to back out of the car. From those lots. What do you think?
I can't answer that question. I back out onto 9th Street.
Okay, thank you.
Go back a touch to the bill. It was Mr. Rammel, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
When we're talking, you said earlier, okay.
Councilman Conick, are you talking to the mic, please? Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. I had to think and I had to go backwards. So you're saying that, why are we voting on it? Because at the end of the day, you're saying we don't have a choice. That's what I'm hearing.
Can I take this off? Is that all right? Okay. So that is what the legislature has given this body, for good or bad. If it needs code, it must be approved. That's sort of the bottom line. If you don't take any action on it, it gets automatically approved. If you don't either approve it, deny it, or you don't retain, approve it, deny it, approve with condition. And if you don't do one of those two things, you get automatically approved. Thanks to the 2019 section. So your point is valid. However, you do have, if it doesn't meet code, this body does have the opportunity to deny it or approve with conditions. This has to be done in a very specific way.
So this is something that should have been addressed at planning and zoning before it was approved. They could have disapproved it and then it would have gone.
If it doesn't meet code.
If it doesn't, but once they say it meets code,
Once
it's just in.
Well, it's not for planning and zoning to say whether or not it meets code, it either meets code or it doesn't. All right, so they voted to approve it. If we now look at it and say, you know what, this is wrong and this is wrong, this doesn't meet code and this doesn't meet code, then this body could say, we are gonna approve it with conditions or deny it because of X, Y, and Z, but we have to tell the applicant what X, Y, and Z are. Yes, ma'am.
And the subdivision ordinance says planning and zoning gives a tentative approval and specifically says it is not final.
For the city manager, is our comprehensive, and I should know this, our last comprehensive plan was 2012,
That's correct.
was adopted November of 2012. And in the short-term recommendations for housing, of course, our first challenge is to identify the housing needs of the community. It includes identifying gaps in the types of available housing. The potential demand is not currently being met in order to form the basis for action to be undertaken. The demand for new housing is likely relatively small since the population is not growing rapidly. That was back in 2012. Our population is growing rapidly, which makes the challenge in addressing the issue more difficult. So to identify housing needs, the city should survey residents and employees of local businesses, investigate and address infrastructure needs in residential areas, and then, of course, review the 2007 comprehensive plan. So were any of the survey, were any of the residents actually surveyed in this neighborhood?
There's your answer.
Thank you. Okay, so then it's also in the historic district.
It is not in the historic district, it's just on the outside of the district.
According to this map,
Now, this particular map is our zoning map, correct? If I pull out the historic district that's been certified by the state, you won't find that on the map. So there's an error in our zoning map right here.
okay, because this says historic district, so then I looked up historic preservation. One of Smithville's greatest assets is historic home buildings, okay? So the character of our buildings has made Smithville a hot spot for movie production, blah, 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 economic benefits, great interest for visitors. So protecting and enhancing these assets should be a very high priority for the entire community because of the many benefits it will provide. So it goes on to talk about recommendations for design, et cetera, et cetera. So if this isn't correct and it's not in the historic district, it definitely is where people come into Smithville and see Smithville first time.
Agreed.
Okay. Thank you.
Is it correct?
I got one more comment. The other thing that's in the housing subdivision regulation ordinance, it says the ordinance is enacted by the city of Smithville for the following purposes. And it's in section 3.2, to provide for the orderly development of the city and its extraterritorial district jurisdiction. So in my opinion, I don't believe this plat is very orderly for the character of Smithville. That's my personal opinion.
Go back again. I'm sorry. I need to know, okay, you say we
Talk to your,
can,
talk
we
to your
can,
legislature.
we can disapprove with conditions. Then you said something about the only conditions can be if it doesn't meet code. So can we really disapprove with conditions?
Well, you can approve it,
I'm just saying.
approve it with conditions, or disapprove it.
Okay, approve with conditions.
Right.
So what does he mean? I'm sorry.
So you
Approve
can,
with conditions.
so this body could say, okay, we're going to approve this plat, but you have to fix whatever, this lot's too wide or too narrow. Those have to be adjusted. You can do that. And then they could make those adjustments, right? Or a lot of times, when these are gonna get approved, they don't have, they have to submit it there, like if you have requirements that they have to submit their utility approval with their platting, things like that. Or would be the conditions. And then the applicant's gonna have an unlimited amount of time to fix it and bring it back.
Okay, but if we say, well, they're too narrow, but they meet the code, can we say that?
No, sir.
Again, what I said, if it meets all the code, then we really can't even conditionally, what conditions can we put on the approval?
You're correct. The only reason you can say no or yes, but fix this is it has to be in the code or in the state law. And again, that's from the last section of the state. Nobody likes it.
So if it's in our housing, subdivision regulation under section 3 for purpose and intent. Number 2, 3.2, can we reject it because it does not provide for the orderly development of the city and or the adequate fire protection, adequate access. I know Jack addressed that. I would say that it doesn't even ensure access adequate amounts of light and air, because if people put up fences, it's gonna be pretty stuffy over there. And the sixth thing it says is to ensure the overall health, safety, and general welfare of the community. That's pretty broad. That's in our ordinance.
That is pretty broad. I wouldn't want to go to the courthouse on that. But I'll leave that to the discretion of the body.
More thing, under P and Z,
in the preliminary plat, did you see the location of the important individual trees?
No, and I asked that question.
So that was supposed to
Actually,
be,
actually, I pointed out.
Yes. That's correct, but it's supposed to be in the preliminary plat, correct? Wooded areas, location of important individual trees, and that was a big deal because those trees are, you know, hundreds of years old that are over there. And I know that the developer said, oh, we're gonna save the trees, and they have. You start doing a lot of construction, and putting all these lots, these trees are, you know, could be destroyed. But that wasn't on there, on the original plat that you all approved, or tentatively approved, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
That's why I went to great lengths to discuss it, because I knew the materials weren't there. I also knew that they would have the opportunity to provide those materials, which they did largely before this meeting.
And on this plat we received tonight, the lot lines go directly over the trees. And that was part of the bidding process when it began back in July, which none of it is brought forward for the people who actually paid the $15,000 for it. It's in none of the paperwork. What the Smithville Housing, the Smithville Hospital Authority, the rules that they came out and said at the first bid meeting, none of this conveyed over. So how do we go back to the beginning? When no trees are supposed to be removed, the Masonic, what's it called? The pavilion, thank you. The pavilion is supposed to be reserved, supposed to be a community set up type. So how does that get enforced now?
Well, if you were talking about the bid itself and the different part in the bid, that's beyond planning and zoning.
Yeah, but none of it was brought forward. So where do we begin to?
I don't understand.
Councilmember Forster, let me interject. Okay, so part of the requirements for submitting the plat is to provide any deeds or covenant restrictions of the property. There was a handout that I gave you, and this is all part of the bid packet, so they have nothing to do with this, but in this particular document, it says that the purchaser will leave all large century oak trees on the property and design lots so there is room to build a home on each lot and still have the trees. That conveys the agreement of sale and purchase. I'm sorry.
And we just received this tonight.
Page 8. This was not our document to review. Yeah, this was the seller. I mean, this is a document that the housing authority published. It's got nothing to do, it does have lots to do. We want the trees to be protected. And you're going to hear from the developer later. I believe he's going to address this. So, but here's the document that says the trees have to be protected as part of the covenants to go with the property.
Is that a public record? Is that in the deed records?
Yes.
All right.
And so with the reference that Councilmember Forster made regarding the size of the homes, I have them both here. I'd be happy to leave copies or pass copies around.
Robert, am I correct in assuming then that, even if the plats are approved as we go into construction on individual lots, these conveyances would still be in effect and be part of our approval of construction?
That is correct.
Okay, so the other thing that's in our ordinance under administration notice and hearing requirements, it talks about protest against the application is signed by owners of 20% or more of the area of lots. We received this a list of reasons and ordinance citations to justify the vote. So we require tonight 4 out of 5 because there were only 13 people that signed a petition. Did I count those numbers correct?
That's because nobody had an opportunity to sign.
You have sufficient signature. You have more than.
There were 25 signatures.
But I got this evening was 60, so I must be looking at something different.
Ask people.
All right, I just wondered because I do know that's in our ordinance under administration section 1.2. So we're going to cover that a little bit. Thank you.
Are we still on the planning and zoning commission?
Wait one, since this is, the petition hadn't been officially submitted to us, but it has because we received it. Now, the question I have is 4 out of 5, we're missing a council member. We have 4. And number 1, is it now take 3 out of 4? So I need some guidance
How
on
many city council members do we have?
5,
5.
and there are 4 here tonight.
There are 4 here tonight. Okay.
And how does that affect the legislation?
Okay, so it's 3/4 of who's here. Not the total, it's 3/4 of who's here. It's qualified in is the term that the court used, means who's here as well. So you get 3/4. And how that affects the legislation is, if it needs code, it has to be approved, you know, and then the landowner is gonna have, remedies if it's not, but.
We don't know how this vote's going to turn out.
Right.
Say it's 2 and 2.
Right.
That's about 3/4.
Right.
Legislation says that if it meets code, you have to approve.
Right, but then the mayor gets tiebreaker. In the mayor tiebreaker.
Yeah, I'm just
Yeah.
scenarioing this
So
out.
when you have 2 and 2, then you have the mayor getting a tiebreaker, so you have either way, gonna be what? 3/5. I'm not in that position, so is that enough? No, it's not enough for 74% or 75%. So if it fails, then it's automatically disapproved. That's all that question. Yeah.
He would like you to restate that, maybe in the mic that you can borrow when it's not squeaking. Try this one right here.
That's squeaking?
This one.
This one? Okay.
Thank you.
Does that work or no?
Okay.
I think it's just the distance between all the microphones. They're getting feedback. I'm getting feedback on yours. Yeah. Okay, so to answer the question was, if we have, say, 2 and 2, because we only have 4 council members, right? If there's a tie, the mayor is the tiebreaker. So if we end up with a 2-2 tie, then the mayor's going to get a vote, and we have to calculate that 3/4 based on the people who are entitled to vote, which is going to be 5 total. 3 out of 5 is not going to be enough to hit that 3/4. We looked at this issue a few years ago when I first got involved.
Does that lead to automatic disapproval?
Oh, yeah, so that was the problem is if the motion to approve fails, it's automatic. Correct. Right there. I'm very loud.
Thank you.
One more question for Jason.
COVID.
In your section, you said pertaining to block lengths does not pertain to this property because there are existing plats that control the location of the streets. Now, in our housing ordinance, it does talk about block lengths.
In the subdivision ordinance,
Yes,
yeah, it talks about blocks,
yes,
and what it says is,
not exceed 300 feet.
right, what it says is, so if you look at the last sentence in section 4,
Yes,
it says block widths. Right, that section applies,
okay,
but keep in mind, at the very end of that sentence, it says, except in unusual circumstances.
correct.
Okay, so if this body finds that there are unusual circumstances, then it doesn't have to meet that minimum block width, which it's an oddly shaped property. I wouldn't even know where you would measure that from. I know it's in excess of 300 feet.
So it technically doesn't meet the ordinance just based on that.
Unless it's unusual, and that would be a back line.
Correct. Okay. Thank you.
But yeah, but my other comment was about the, where no existing class control. That was the bulk of that comment. That sentence is block should not be more than 600 feet and less than 300. Were you asking about that too, or just that last one?
Let me look at it.
Well, I'm just saying where that sentence said where no existing class control, then the block shall be 300 feet long or minimum 300, maximum 300.
Correct, yes.
But we have controlling class in this situation because everything around is flat. So that sentence doesn't apply, is what I'm saying. But that last sentence does, about the block width, that does apply. It's a standalone sentence, it's not conditional.
Okay. Thank
Rebel, I
you.
have a question.
Yes, sir.
Seems like we've gotten into a position where we have not gotten information in a timely fashion, as some would like. Are we legally required to take action tonight? Is there a possibility of deferral so that we can gather more information and people can, you know?
So in terms of, I'll just couch it in terms of the changes to chapter 212. Is if we don't take action tonight, so planning and zoning took action last week. This body has 30 days from that action to take some action. If this body does not take any action, the plat is automatically approved, keeping in mind it's a preliminary plat. Okay, does that answer your question? Okay.
Council, are there any further questions for Mr. Riley? Okay, if not, then we will close the open meeting and move into the public hearing.
One last statement. Thank you for the opportunity to serve my community.
You're most welcome. Okay, we're now into the public hearing, and the first item is to hear citizen comments on the multiple variance request, including a 5-foot height regulation to increase building height from 35 to 40 feet and change from 2.5 stories to 3 story, 2 rear yard setbacks, 1 15-foot rear yard variance, 10-foot rear yard variance on south property, Eleanor Business Park. Okay, thank you. Moving on to item B, preliminary plat on Chips Haven, our number 49198, owner Chips Haven LLC, agent Evco Engineering. We have citizens to speak on this.
Okay, I have Ms. Jensen as first. I do have Lysol over there if you want to spray them right before or after.
I would like to have him speak first and then I'll take him behind him. One of the nice gentlemen.
I will allow that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam
You have a 3-minute timer set. I don't know. Oh, you're not up there. It'll be when you start talking. All right, go.
Thank you. I think I can shed some light on this and give you guys the reasons and I can, I think I can give you the reasons needed to disapprove this. I can cite the ordinance where this plat proposal is not in compliance. I delivered a roadmap to disapproval to the council members before the meeting. I think that's been referenced. It's the list of reasons and ordinance citations to justify the vote to disapprove. I appreciate the opportunity to provide input and feedback on this plat for development of the Old Tower nursing home site. I'm trying to speak quickly. I think it is paramount that the citizens of Smithville provide you the input and feedback that you need to make decisions that reflect our views. In fact, it's our obligation to do so, to keep you informed of how the people feel. I'm speaking tonight on behalf of many concerned citizens, including friends, neighbors, and families who have asked me to represent them.
Mitch, I'm sorry, a little closer to the mic.
I'm breathing germs. No, I don't want to.
Okay.
Pause. I'd like to thank you all for the sometimes thankless job that you do as you volunteer for our community, because no matter what you decide, someone's not going to be happy, and I recognize that. This issue has exploded over the last few days, and I want to avoid any inflammatory rhetoric. The ultimate solution is for the developer to go back to the design phase and submit a new plat that creates a legal residential block. The new residential block must conform to ordinance with alleys and will produce homes that reflect the neighborhood and the city's charm. Council needs to disapprove this proposal in order to do so. Proceed. I need you to know I can't enumerate and explain all of the issues and citations in the 3 minutes I'm allowed to speak. For expediency, I delivered a list of issues to be reviewed and a petition from property owners within 200 feet of the development and other concerned citizens. This petition meets the threshold of more than 20%, therefore the council must approve only on a 75% vote. And I think we've just been told that if we don't get 4 votes, it's automatically disapproved. I can help me clarify that later. I consulted with most of the city leadership over the last few days, and there appears to be a belief that the council has no other option to approve or table other than to do so. But I believe the council has 3 options. That's been confirmed. I'm going to skip over that. If the council agrees this proposal should be disapproved, it must provide the developer with a list of reasons for disapproval and cite those issues where it's not in compliance. I have done that and given you that roadmap. So that's why I'm here. I want to make it clear, I'm not anti-developer or anti-development. I'm a small business owner and an entrepreneur myself, and I understand the need for profit. We're not here to just say no. We're here to say not now and not like this. I submit that this list is more than enough to justify the vote to disapprove. We need to take a breath. There are other subdivision proposals in the works. There are numerous developers that have already bought up land in and around town. We need to get this right going forward. The people of Smithville and our city council hold the cards. We should dictate what is built and how it is built. It is our obligation to take control. Thank you. I'm finished. And they're welcome to ask me questions, and that would give me more time.
Hi, I'm Denise Jensen. I live on Flower Street. And I'm proud to be part of this community. I hope you can hear me. Oh my God. Okay, is that better? Okay. I only want to say a few things. I spent time yesterday afternoon in between giving COVID vaccines and doing other things to listen to the P&Z hearing. I watched on YouTube. I took copious notes. The only thing I'm going to say is I'm unclear as to why the P&Z even submitted this to the city council. And why I'm saying that is that there were a lot of loose ends that weren't included in this procedure to submit to the city council. Topography, water issues, drainage issues were not included in the original submittal. And so I think that the P&Z was a little hasty in submitting this to city council. I love Smithville. I consider it part of my family. I don't have much family left except my husband of 47 years. Oh my God. Yay. And I want the city to do well. We chose the city after living in 13 different places. We hate Austin and we want this to be wonderful. Thank you very much.
I have Mr. Johnson.
No, he's not.
Yeah.
3-minute show.
Yeah, be loud.
I have to defend myself here. She sort of drug me into this yesterday. And I feel a little bit with her dragging me in that late in the process. Like I did tonight, finding out from our city attorney, we may not have any race. That scares me. That says there's something very wrong with the detail that's been done. So I only got 3 minutes. I'm going to leave this between you two because you seem to have a handle on what's going on here from the questioning that I'm hearing from you. But it's a list of 24 items. And it took me 5 minutes to write them up. And it starts with what's the traffic impact? I heard that. It talks about what are the tax implications? What are we as a city going to get in terms of tax revenue to cover the extended services that'll come from servicing 100 doors, 27 buildings, whatever goes into this place? What's the impact on the water system? What's the impact on the sewer system? What's the impact on the electric and gas grid? How much is allocated to new roads, resurfacing, widening? Is there anything in there for a park for the people that live there? She says she hates Austin. We didn't hate Austin. We hated what happened to Austin. And we don't want to see that happen here. We came here for a reason. We have a refugee who lives in Austin. It's our grandson and our son and his wife. We're living here so we can go see them. We're trying to get our other son to move back. Okay, I'll just leave you with the list, but the one thing that comes to my mind, and I'm a walker, I walk every day. I've been walking by that site since they started tearing it down. And I want to know where the asbestos went. It was remediated. We did that to a building in Austin. It cost us a fortune for one building. And I watched that happen for the 3 weeks it took them to tear it down. And that was a scrape and dump operation. You need to know that. I saw no one in hazmat suits. I saw no one in gloves. I saw nothing but trucks hauling that stuff away. And I like to know where it went. Okay, so you can take my list. It talks about that. It talks about soil samples, air sampling, all the things that should be done to make sure that we're going to go forward with this. It's safe for us to live here. It's safe for the new people to live here. And I'll leave it doing that. I don't hate Austin. We loved it. We had a ball there. We raised 2 kids there. We even raised a longhorn. Okay. It's okay. I don't hold it against you. That's my 3 minutes. Thank you.
I have Kenneth Kennedy.
Good evening. I also am somebody who, about 10 years ago, my wife and I moved out of Austin because we wanted to move out. And we were looking for a place to retire, and we ended up here. And the reason we ended up here is because when we drove out here to look at some property for sale, people still waved at you. We took a little walk down Main Street. We liked exactly what we saw. We ended up finding a house and ended up liking our neighbor, and we met quickly, and the people who were there. Anyhow, we wanted to get out of Austin, and we wanted to come here, and we did. It was not crowded, it was small and friendly, and we just liked it. But what happened since then, what's going on now is across the street, it's fixing to go up, exactly what we tried to avoid and not be around. And I can't imagine anybody else who lives here. If you were me, and the house that I had now, where I have the river and to the back of me, and I had what used to be a nice nursing home, right, the way that people can see. I'm afraid now what I'm fixing to have is go from somebody who's in the community, as part of the community, to somebody that's concerned about my property. Who's going to be parking in front of it? Who's going to be walking through my yard to go to the river? Who's going to be doing things? And so what I'll be doing is protecting my property rather than being part of the community or the city like we've always been. Putting people like sardines on top of each other and expecting it to be or become part or just integrate with the rest of the community, it's not going to be likely. If we don't look at that, and if we can't do anything, one thing I would hope, and I've heard tonight some hope, because I can see people are at least concerned. But if you lived where I live, if you were retired, moved out here, and now exactly what I moved away from is moving across the street from me, it's not pleasant. It's not a great thought. And so I don't look forward to it. I hope there's something that could be done. I know that there's 2 sides, and anytime you have attorneys involved, you could find another attorney to represent the other side of the people. And I hope that the city are doing that. There's things that we can do. So I'll yield my time rather than say it, but I know this is a bad day when you change from being a person in the community to just an individual who's going to have to protect what I consider mine. That little 3-car right across the street.
Davis.
Hold on. Like Carol Lynette show here, you know.
be easier, we just take the mic to it.
No, that's all right, that's all right.
Take the mic to you. I want to hear what you have to say, you're welcome to stay sitting.
Basically. Can you hear me back there?
Sure can.
Okay, basically, I was born in Smithville on Main Street, and I was raised in Fiscal. And in 2006, I retired early and moved to Smithville and helped take care of my aunt and uncle. Jeanette Walker, who actually was part of the city at one time during our Crawford days. We now live at 800 Craddock, which is at the corner of Craddock and Garwood. The street is extremely narrow and very busy, especially during the morning and the afternoon when people are coming and going from work. Colorado is the same way. We do not want to have from our block at Craddock to Colorado to see 8 houses lined up in a row on narrow ass lots. Excuse my French, but that's the best way to put it. It is wrong. It is not right for the community. It is not right for the neighbors. Most of our neighbors have been there since their homes were built. They've raised their children there. And we don't want to look out our front door and see these small houses that may be 3 stories and may have a parking lot right in front of their home. And if this thing passes, it could essentially give 3-story homes with the parking lot, the parking garage on the 1st floor, and the living spaces on the 2nd and 3rd floor. At this point, with the plans and the unknowns that are out there, we have no reassurance of how the houses will develop in this type that they've got. The plans have been kept secret. Some of them have come out. I got one on January 31st before any of the demolition was done. And Joe Jensen is right. They did just bulldoze something. There were a few remediation people there with hazmat materials. But the hazmat people were actually picking up things with their hands with no protection. Asbestos itself, from what I understand from a hazmat specialist, is not really that dangerous unless you're going to touch it. It's not like chemicals like oil and gas products. So I'm not too concerned about the asbestos, but I am concerned about the size of these lots. Because a lot may have to go right between where a tree is and how you're going to build a house behind a tree. But anyway, we're very concerned about it. The entire street is concerned about it. So much so that my brother-in-law, who's unable to attend the field tonight, is already talking about moving. And most of our street is with them. But there's no place to move in Smithville. Unless you want to buy a small house.
I have Dawn Lushnick.
Good afternoon, council. How are y'all today? Thank y'all for having me and giving me a few minutes. So I was born and raised on 603 Colorado. My mom's 89 years old. She still lives there. Colorado Road has become a very busy road. It's one of the main arteries into the city center of our town ever since they put the exit in there. I think this whole deal has been brought on very quietly, and I don't think there's been hardly any or enough research done to see the amount of traffic that actually is on Colorado Road. It's a very busy road. I can't imagine people backing out of the driveway in the Colorado Road. It's constantly, it has 18-wheeler traffic. It has cars, 2 or 3 cars in a row on it. That's one of my main concerns. Also, on Colorado Road, the city has done a fine job. They put a ditch in and laid concrete down and really made the water problem kind of go away. So how are you going to keep the water problem going away if you're going to put driveways off Colorado Road? That's one of my main concerns. It's already a problem on the road by Craddock Court and where the nursing home used to be. That whole parking lot would be full of water. So where's that water going to go? So is the city going to be liable for the drainage, or is it going to come to the developer to take the expense to put in drainage to keep the water from flooding houses on Short Street, Middle Street, and Colorado Road as well? Parking, there's going to have to be a parking lot. That's all it is to it.
The nursing home had a beautiful parking lot. There was never a parking there. We're talking about 2 cars per driveway. What's happened when they have a family get together? Where are those cars going to park? You're not going to park on Colorado Road. It's going to be accident. It's going to be dangerous. There's no common area with no alleyway for your fire department. You have to have alleyway for fire department. I've got nephews and son-in-laws that are Houston firefighters. They're amazed that there's no alleyway for protection for the citizens that are going to live in that house. There's no common area for the kids to play. These little lots, we're going to put the kids on the street. Where are they going to play at? They're not wide enough. So there's not been enough research to even bring this to the council. I don't think enough research went to the planning and zoning committee. I don't know why the hospital board got to actually say, we're going to do this or that. I feel like that should be for the city of Smithville. And I don't think that anybody should have voted planning or zoning or the council until there's been more research. Have there been a car count in Colorado Drive? Is there going to be, how many more cars are going to be on Chart Street? More maintenance for the city, more taxes for the taxpayer. So I think you guys need to do a bunch more research, and I definitely think we should have larger lots with nicer houses. And we're all about, our families, all about keeping Smithville beautiful and keeping our residents happy. Thank you very much for your time.
Next, I have Annette Kowski.
Thank you. I have a speech problem, so bear with me. Thank you for listening to our concerns. Our neighbors are up in arms. We are all concerned about the traffic and the safety. It was our understanding that the lots were going to be bigger. Now, when you come to the code, they meet the code because of the square footage, the over 5,000 square foot. But they're long and narrow. You can't get a car around them. You probably won't be able to get around a lawnmower around it to go to the back door. Lost my note. Sorry. Is a particular just concern. We don't want to do 3-story houses when you got the garage on the bottom floor. Smithville is attracting a lot of empty nesters with cheap pockets. They're mature people, and they want the slower lifestyle the Smithville offers. There's been talk that people can buy 2, 3, 4 lots. Sure they can. But if this is an SF1 designation, they can only build a house on 1 lot. It's like in Austin. You can go buy 2 lots, but you can only build a house on 1 lot. You can put a guest house on it. So that doesn't solve the problem. The lots need to be twice the size that they are right now. You can actually get more money for a bigger lot than you can for 2 little lots. People will pay. Look at the real estate market. Watch TV. This community has supported the Hurdle Family Banking business for years. I feel betrayed by this entity trying to come in here and change Smithville. And the community built Smithville finally. And this is our personal house. I am a widow. And I understand that Jim's name is part of this development. I would say this right, so I don't sound rude. The thought of putting a lady husband's name on a project that is so unwelcome by neighbors is unimaginable. I'm done.
Eric Gutierrez.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. Definitely no public speaker and I'm no lawyer, so it's hard to understand all the codes and stuff. I try my best. When I first heard this own hospital property had sold, I was excited. That excitement quickly turned to concern. Before this project is approved, I feel there's some concerns that need to be addressed. Adding this number of houses will surely increase traffic on Short and Colorado. People already drive way too fast down these streets. There could easily be 50 plus cars more coming through there. Not to mention the possibility of new younger citizens, our kids, that could live at these houses. When asked before about speed bumps, that can't be done because that was the route to the hospital. Well, that hospital hasn't been there in years. I have a concern for safety of the citizens of Smithville, and I can't even let my kid play in the front yard because I'm scared if he accidentally wanders out there, he'll get hit by a car going 50 miles an hour. And that's easily done on that street. And if you don't believe me, go sit over there and watch. What will this project do to storm runoff? I've heard that now there's something that came out on that. I don't know what that is, but has a study been done? We all know this is a concern for all citizens. And that's an issue that has caused much damage and heartache in our city. Lots of this size across the front, the 50 foot will be hard enough to fit a house on much less than a house with a garage for cars to park in. Wherever these citizens park, these concerns come up several times. With no alley, they'll not be able to access garages on the back side of the house. This is another one kind of for the future where the city scopes up to snuff. But I cannot believe that a demolition project this size didn't have more requirements. There was no fence to protect kids from entering this site. This is almost unheard of. Also, was there proof of this asbestos abatement was done properly and by a licensed company? To my knowledge, no notices or documentation was given to the neighbors, and they were not notified that the project was starting. What happened to our small town values of being neighborly? Growth is a great thing when done correctly. The smallest lot in this town, or in this area of town, is 67 foot across the front. And that's the neighbors across the street and kind of around it there. By putting this type of development in, it will take the character of the neighborhood. Just because this meets current code doesn't mean that it's right for the neighborhood. People move to this town, more specifically this neighborhood, to get away from developments like this. It just doesn't fit. If done to look more like the neighborhood that's originally set up, this project would look amazing. It would be safer in many aspects: fire suppression, traffic, trash pickup. And currently, I asked for a limb pickup in the front of my house on Short Street, and the guys that were picking up limbs said, no, we can't pick it up on Short Street. It's too unsafe. So now it's going to be safe to put trash cans and other stuff in front of it. And I just, one last thing, the citizens voted y'all in, city council, to be their voice, and there's a lot of them that aren't here tonight. I just ask that you keep that in mind.
Next is Dan Weinberger.
Thank you, and thank you, City Councilman and Mayor and Robert, for having us all in here.
I just want to see a show of hands of people here who are here for this particular issue.
Okay, thank you very much. Looks like most people anyway.
Oh, how about a show of hands of people who are here who are against the current plan?
That's the community talking to you. Are we a community? Are we a community still? Yes. Well, let's see if we can keep doing that. All right.
Caroline McClendon.
My name is Caroline McClendon. I am an attorney and I served as a commissioner on the Planning and Zoning Board for 4 years. I'm here today to talk to you about the zoning change request. Nobody's talking about that. They're talking about the plat. And I support and agree with every comment that's been made about the plat this evening. But I want to talk about the zoning issue because that's important and you have to address that today. Actually, the application you're looking at, I made that form. I know the law on this issue and it's not been talked about and it was not addressed at planning and zoning, and that's upsetting to me. And I want to talk about accountability. Robert Table, you need to be better accountable or more accountable to the Planning and Zoning Commission. They rely on our city people who work in this office to provide them with information. They cannot make educated decisions. You've heard Mr. Rooney speak. He didn't have enough information. That is an embarrassment for our city. How can they say that they approved something when they couldn't hear what was being said? They didn't ask enough questions and they weren't given enough information. You can't move on something and vote on something when you don't have the information. What's concerning to me is that contractually, we have people coming to you asking to violate the terms of the conditions of their purchase that they make. That's a lawsuit that they're going to have to face down the road, but right now they're asking you to turn it from SF1 to CF. And what that entails is there's a legal standard that they have to prove. And I'm going to provide you with the case law afterwards that shows you what the Texas Supreme Court has said that they have to prove. There's 4 elements that they have to prove that they've met. What's concerning to me is that they have to prove that the change in zoning class must bear a substantial relationship to the public health, safety, morals, or general welfare, or protect and preserve historical and cultural places. And so what they're having to prove to you is that the zoning request that they're making will support the public health, safety, and morals or general welfare. They're not going to be able to establish that because they contractually agreed to make it SF1, and we don't need a hospital office or building there. That's been moved. Keep commercial properties at the loop, out on the highway, or in the industrial park. Going to be 24 houses, more or less, depending on what happens with this plat. And I hope and I pray that the herd is here, what the community is saying to them. We have been good to them, and we expect them to be good to us as well. And so I hope that today that you deny the zoning request. Specifically on the, the sidewalks. We haven't talked about the sidewalks now. So one thing on the subdivision issue, Ms. Bruno, that I wanted to address, you mentioned it briefly. One of the things is it says requires sidewalks, and that's extremely important. And then in the zoning code, it states that CF, if you pass the zoning ordinance and you allow this change, CF requires that there be alleyways, and that's not on their plat. So if you change and you approve this zoning requirement, their plat requires alleys. It's footnote number 2 on page 27 of chapter 14, which is the updated zoning code.
Next, I have Randall Mills.
Good evening, everybody. 3 minutes is not long enough to talk about the last 21 years of my life. I lived at Craddock Court and 801. My wife and I came here 21 years ago. At the time, I was federal law enforcement. That infamous day, 9/11 happened. And I took a job as a federal air marshal and drove back and forth to Houston every day for 14 years. I went through 3 vehicles and a lot of heartache, missed a lot of birthdays. I missed a lot of things here, but I was not going to take my kids to Houston. This wasn't going to happen. And I did not. So what I'm seeing now, I guess what I'm saying is that 21 years later, you're telling me that I wasted 14 years of my life keeping the house that I've got with all the blood, sweat, and tears. I've heard a lot tonight from an attorney about what you guys have an obligation to do tonight. I'm asking you to ask these people that are opposing this, what is their intention? Why are we not putting pressure on them to resubmit? Come up with something better, come up with something different. Why put this onus on you as a city council? There's lots of people in this room that I know. I'm not a great public speaker, guys.
Where do you live?
I live at 801 Craddock Court. I'm right on the corner, long red brick house, metal roof. Lots of time, lots of effort in my house. I was looking to this time in my life to retire. I go down the road, and I want to speak to the asbestos issue real quick. I have photographs. I can tell you there were times when there were people in Tyvek suits, half-mask respirators, doing the right thing. Not one time was I notified that this was happening. As a CSP, Robert, you know all the things that are entailed in that, as do I, I'm a safety professional as a trade now. I don't feel like that was handled well. I cannot tell you the ins and outs of what was there, but I do know there were respirators and Tyvek sheets and something flowing directly towards my house. So I have an issue with how that was handled. I talked to Katie this morning. I was a man, and I went to him and I said, "Hey, look, guys, this is nothing about you personally. This gentleman right over here has helped me out tremendously get the tree out of my front yard. He's part of the group that is buying this thing." Katie told me that he agreed that we need to go back to the drawing board. Those were his words. That he gave me today. It says we need to go back to the drawing board. You're absolutely right. We didn't take enough time. We didn't think this through. We should have taken more time. So I find it a little disheartening that this whole thing was not tabled under the pressure maybe of other people that are part of this LLC. I can't say that for certain, and maybe I shouldn't say that at all. But those were his words. He felt like we should go back to the drawing board. So I'll leave it at that. Again, I'm not a great public speaker. I apologize. But again, I feel like, like 14 years that I stood driving back and forth to Houston was all for nothing.
Right. The dog sign up twice, or is there somebody that's really familiar with the term? It looks like audition again, but. The two of you? There's not another dog that would like to speak. Okay, Trish Camino.
Sorry, I've only spoken twice.
Okay, I don't have to speak too loud because everybody knows who I am. I am a vocal person, but I live at 806 Short Street. I am on the corner of Short and 9th. My kitchen window faces that subdivision. I was around when they started tearing down the building. Just gonna tell you, the minute that first wall hit, I saw it on my side. I immediately called the city because smoke went everywhere. I'm getting emotional. I have raised my children in that home for 27 years. I'm sorry, I've lived in that home for 27 years. I am a 4th generation in that home. My kids have never been able to play in the front yard unless we're here. Kids drive fast down our street. I have an autistic grandson who rides a special ed bus. That bus has been passed numerous times on that street. It's extremely busy. It is not safe for kids. One, it's to make everybody laugh. The water pressure down there. We cannot run the toilet and the washing machine at the same time down there. So that is going to be a water issue down in that area. I did watch all the dump trucks go up and down the road. I know Jody was there every day supervising the construction of it. He did offer for me to walk in to when he said the abatement had been done or whatever, your asbestos abatement in the main building. I was concerned to go in there because I knew that asbestos was not safe. My mother was also a resident of that nursing home until they closed that nursing home, and I was told because it wasn't safe for her to be in that home with the mold and the asbestos that was there. Okay, I don't know why my grandson is autistic because there's asbestos everywhere in this town. It's an old town. We moved here to bring my grandmother back home when she was ready to pass. My husband wanted to live in a small town. We too are from Houston. We did not want to go to Houston. We did not want to go to Austin. This is a small town. Everybody knows everybody, whether we agree or not agree. I understand growth and I understand change. And I do understand about putting somebody's name in memory because he has that gentleman, that ship has community, he has donated to the community and organizations. I could say a whole lot, but I started questioning this in 2019 when I first saw the first video that said that housing, that area was going to be low income housing. I came into Robert Campbell, so it could be low income housing, a drug rehab, and then I was told it was going to be assisted living originally for elderly and disabled people. I'm okay for that kind of thing. I'm concerned about 27 homes being there. Where are they going to park? I have a traverse that has been hit 6 times on that corner. That's just, no matter where I park it, because I am right on that corner, I'm the green Jeep, so, I'm just saying it's not safe, and I don't know what you're gonna, where these people are gonna park. And we can't see, now, I didn't even know where my neighbors were until they tore that nursing home down, so you could see everything. But those trees cover 13 of these lots. I just counted them, somebody just sent me the overhead, so 13 trees, 13 lots will affect those trees, and I was told those trees were not gonna come down. So, I thought my time was up, I told you, it's a long one, thank you.
The last speaker I have is Tanya Nielsen.
I'm back there. I haven't seen anybody speak right there. Okay. I had to just crane my ears. Okay.
You can take it out of it. And you have to hold it up to your mouth.
Okay. My name is Tanya Nielsen. I live on Colorado, 1108, down actually toward the entrance and exit. I don't know anybody here. I've been here for 6 whole months. The Towers home was there when we got here, and shortly hereafter it started crashing down. I even made a joke to somebody that, oh wow, I bet they're going to put 12 houses on that lot. And then come to find out it was, 24, 27. Not happy about that. We lived for 27 years in an unincorporated area in Harris County, and that area just absolutely exploded in growth. And we have owned acreage out here between Smithville and Giddings for about 25 years, and we moved out here 6 months ago in order to be closer to our property. And I don't know, I'm really dismayed that this is happening. I picture it being like my daughter's neighborhood. She lives kind of south of Austin, and it's just the houses are crammed in there. They have no yards, and they're all parking on the street and in the yards. It's horrible. I hate that neighborhood. And I'm worried about the traffic. I don't know anything about the rules. I know that we had a fence built, and we had to jump through some hoops to get the fence built, and that's okay. That's okay. And I know that the historical district has all kinds of rules and regulations for doing stuff, to your house and property. So to me, it seems like the rest of us should be protected from weird and rampant growth too. That's really all I have to say. All of our speakers, Jennifer. Well, I have to close the public hearing and go back into an open meeting with the understanding that if the council has any additional questions during the open meeting part, after we've heard from our developers, that they will be allowed to call on members of the audience. The first item is item 10A, which is the multiple variance request. And this is on the property, Elmar Business Park, lot 1.5 acres, or 90283, property owner, Burn Street, LLC, agent Chase Hodges. And there are 3 items under this. So I'd like for the agent to speak first, and then when we get to making a motion on these, this will have to be 3 separate items. Yes.
Two rear yard, a height, 2 height regulation, a height story, and 2 rear yard. Okay.
Okay, well, the floor is yours.
Hold the mic, be loud.
I've never had a problem with that being loud part.
I guess, what would you like to know?
Well, is it gonna look like this picture?
So the picture is just a representation of an idea.
Now, remind everyone to please speak into the mic. There's people in the back that can't hear, council members and. Yeah, you take it out. Whatever you'd like to do so they can hear.
Okay. The print is just a representation, an idea merely to look at a concept. It is not a finite plan. This is just a layout. The idea was to maintain the Smithville charm, but as we know, things are changing somewhat. And that is an area where we have people that are coming in that we desire to have to work in our hospitals and do other things that may be used to other styles of architecture. And so with the height, the parapet height, the idea of the height increase was to allow for a aesthetically pleasing architectural profile. The height in story increase, the idea there was to allow for larger interstitial spaces to accommodate our HVAC systems, plumbing, and electrical, as well as the structural integrity. That is my specific background as a professional engineer, structural engineer. So that's a very large concept for me to design, build structures that have long-lasting integrity. As we know from looking downtown, these buildings have been here for quite some time, and that's because those people took into account the integrity of those structures at the time. Additionally, the variance requests in terms of the setbacks were in place to allow for this concept to not just strictly be a square or rectangular block in the middle. Again, these are conceptual ideas that we are striving to achieve in some manner, but in terms of architecture, that is not the end all be all.
So, Chase, do you have a vision for what that might look like?
At this time, no, because the reality is the variance requests are what may allow us to achieve a look that maybe what could be coined as Smithville-ish or Smithville-like. I'm not sure what that is to me.
I'll help you.
Yes, I'm aware.
So on your three apartment condo homes, from 2-bedroom, 2-bath, what would those run for a 2-bedroom, 2-bath? Has that even been talked about?
We've been looking at the cost points, but understand that the economics of this project are very important. We want them to be of a level of housing, but they also have to be economical to build. And currently, right now, we all understand that the economics of building is elevated here. Not only in the land purchase price, which in this particular case is not the problem, we're looking at the economics of the actual structures themselves and how to build them for longevity, integrity, as well as architectural and pleasing. I mean, we want the people interior finish, their look, their feel, as opposed to just an apartment complex. I kind of wanted to establish that. However, I realize in the language now that condos are more looked at as a selling point as opposed to a rental. And the idea of this current project would be more of a rental for a long-term investment. Well, with the investment of the property is a long-term investment for the owner. And so there would be apartments in terms of that language. But the idea would be to be a nicer apartment, I guess you could say. I don't really know how to say it appropriately.
Condo home ranging from 2-bedroom, 2-bath, and
Yes.
3-bedroom, 2-bath.
So the idea in the current layout was to have two structures that would meet a 3-2 layout and meet the criteria of the ordinances, and then a smaller unit to accommodate a 2-bed, 1-bath, or 2-bed, 2-bath. We haven't finalized any floor plan layouts. It was more of an idea of concept to see if we could fit that part in, as well as get approval from the city council to pursue this property in this manner.
I like the layout. I like the parking spaces available. I think that's very important to own your parking, own your water, own your, and I like.
Councilmember Forrester, would you please speak into the mic? Thank you.
I do like the layout of the concept you have here. I like that you have parking, on premises parking. I like that you're gonna own your water, own your parking, and I feel like you have achieved this.
Yeah, and you also have the green space, which is nice. You even have a dog run. I thought that was interesting. Any flooding issues over there?
So currently on the map, it indicates as a low flood hazard or no flood hazard on the GIS, the Bastrop, keep saying Bearcat, excuse me, the Bastrop County CAD map. However, I am from here. I've been gone for some time, but I'm completely aware of the conflicts and controversy that part of town has incurred over the years. And so that was when this plan was first brought to us to review, that was a constant and very common discussion. And so with certain types of approaches in terms of the drainage, impervious and pervious cover options, we are taking that into account to minimize this. We're well aware of the water that comes onto the property we are taking that into account. So we are looking at this from all angles, not only from a architectural, but from a very serious engineering perspective to minimize conflicts to that part of town.
On that drainage, you're gonna go into the highway, or is it correct? So that
We haven't run the final analysis, honestly. The cost of the civil review is substantial, okay, for any project. And so in this instance, we wanted to get the approval from an architectural standpoint and then deal with the civil engineering aspects of this project later. It's possible that we have to accommodate that, substantially. That's to be determined. But at this time, with the impact economically to the project, we wanted to get past this point to then move forward, of course, then further on into the rest of the project.
So, no, I just wondered, did you talk to your neighbors there?
I have not personally. The letters did go out.
Okay, thank you.
I think to my issues with text doc. To our knowledge, no, sir.
I agree that the project looks like a perfect fit for that area. It's really not in front of houses. It's in front of the hospital and the nursing home. It's right on the highway, right?
Yes, sir.
And it looks like, I appreciate the path too, by the way. Very well done. And, I don't really see much issue with it. And, it was sent out to all the neighbors. I get it. I assume, sure, 100%. So, you appreciate that.
Council, are there any further questions? Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
At this point, I will entertain a motion on item A1, a 5-foot height regulation to increase building height from 35 feet to 40 feet and a change from 2.5 stories to 3 stories. And I will remind you, council, the approval motion will need to address the 5 points that we have to approve a variance.
Mayor Morgan, I'll make a motion that we approve the first variance, which is a height regulation. It's a 5-foot variance request to increase the building height to 40 feet overall for the Hodges property.
I'll second that.
Okay, I have a motion and a second for approval of 5-foot height regulation to increase building height from 35 to 40 feet and to change from 2.5 stories to 3 stories. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to item 2, This is for a 15-foot rear yard variance for Highway 74.
Okay, Mayor Morgan, I make a motion that we approve the rear yard 15-foot variance request to allow a 10-foot setback along Highway 71 property line for the Burn Street LLC.
Would you add to that motion the,
And the 10-foot variance?
you need to add to that motion the fact that, the criteria that are met to support the request for variance.
Okay,
Councilman Gordon's gonna help you out there.
let's try this again. Okay, I move for approval of the variance. Let's see, of the rear yard 15-foot, requested to allow a 10-foot setback along Highway 71 property line. Variance will not be contrary to the public interest. There are special conditions affecting the applicant's property, and because of the special conditions, enforcement of the ordinance will result in unnecessary hardship. The variance observes the spirit of the ordinance, and the substantial justice is done by granting the variance.
Very good. All in favor, have a motion, second on favor, say aye.
Okay, I move to the approval of the variance for the rear yard 10-foot variance request to allow a 15-foot setback to the adjoining south property. With the following findings, the variance will not be contrary to the public interest. There are no special conditions affecting the applicant's property. And because of the special conditions, literal enforcement of the ordinance will result in unnecessary hardship. The variance observes the spirit of the ordinance. And substantial justice is done by granting the variance.
Have a motion and a second, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Okay, moving on to item B, on preliminary plat and zone change on lot 9 of Chips Haven, R49-198, from SF1 to CF Community Facilities, owner Chips Haven LLC, agent Fiscal Engineering.
Member of the council members there, cannot address the zone change at this particular meeting. That is going to be pushed off. You can't, if the plat's approved, it doesn't go on. We're not going to address the zone change until the following meeting in May. That was an error, a clerical error on our part. All you'll be addressing tonight is the plan approval.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
I have a question for Ms. McClellan. You had mentioned something about, I know we're not going to talk about the variance, zoning. What was it about the sidewalks? I looked for it.
It says that there shall be sidewalks, and it's,
Both sides of the street, section 6.
section 6, yes.
And that was in reference to if we were to do a zoning class change.
No, that's not just a zoning class change, that's in a plat, and this preliminary plat, it has to contain, it says shall be required to have sidewalks, and they are not on the plats.
Shall, yeah, not list, okay, here it is. Shall be required on both sides of the street. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
So point of clarification, so which, the part she's talking about is in the design standards? Thank you. Just quick point of clarification, the section she's addressing is the design standards for when it's actually built. And those sidewalks are gonna be in the right of way, and the right of way is shown. Now, there's some of those design standards talks about lot length, that is addressed in the planning, but things like gutters, curbs, there's base material, that's not addressed in the planning process, that's addressed in the construction process.
But that's not how it's written in the ordinance.
I disagree with that. But it doesn't say, this says minimum design standards for streets and things like that. It doesn't say minimum plat standards. The plat standards are in the section whether 3.2 or whatever.
Is there a representative from the developer here to speak?
I think Mr. Ramble just did speak.
Mayor and council, I'm Tim Sanders with Petco Engineering, and we did the survey engineering so far. So far on the preliminary plat. Also with me this evening are two representatives of the owners group that would be able to answer any questions from an owner's standpoint. I'd be happy to address any questions y'all have from the survey engineering, kind of what the background we did as far as the public infrastructure.
I think one thing I would be interested in having someone address would be some of the questions that have been raised by the citizens tonight, whether that would be you or the developers. I'll leave that up to you guys.
Okay. Well, I'll try to answer it. If I'm missing anything, just let me know. I'll try to answer things the best I can. When we laid this plan out, we tried to meet the city standard as well as what the developer was looking for in this project. We feel like we did that as part of the planning process. Actually, prior to the planning process, we did some conceptual planning as far as paving, drainage, water and sewer, looking at how we were going to serve this subdivision from a paving standpoint, how we were going to serve it from a drainage standpoint, and then water and sewer. And I have some exhibits here.
Was this the only drawing that you ever did for this company, for this LLC, for this particular lot? I mean, plat?
The only drawing.
Is this the only thing you've ever done concept plan? Was there another concept plan that was out there at one time?
We did a second concept plan back in August. Basically, we were hired last summer when this was out for bid, and they asked us to do a feasibility study. And we did a couple of different concept plans for them, presented the concept plans for them, and they chose the one which they preferred to move forward with.
Do you remember, did any of them have green space in it? Meaning green space? Open park kind of space?
There was no park designation.
Did any of them have alleys by chance?
They did not have alleys, no, sir. So from a water and sewer standpoint, I'll try to address this the best I can. From the water standpoint first, the city has an existing 8-inch water line along Garwood Street and an existing 6-inch water line along Northeast 9th Street. The plan for the development is basically to create a loop system around the proposed subdivision and run an 8-inch line from the existing 6-inch line at Northeast 9th Street, run it up north towards Short and east towards Colorado and tie into the existing 6-inch existing 8-inch water line along Garwood Street. From a fire standpoint, 2 new fire hydrants would be added as part of the project. One fire hydrant would be on the new line right here at the corner of Short Street and Colorado Street. And then the second fire hydrant would actually be off of the existing city main along Northeast 9th Street, and it would run kind of near Mill Street. From a sewer standpoint, basically all the lots that front Garwood Street, there's an existing city main, and so the plan would be to tap into that existing city main. For the lots that front Northeast 9th Street, the city has an existing line on Garwood based on just a field survey. When I say field survey, personal site visit, not a detailed topo survey. It looks like we'd be able to serve these lots fronting Northeast 9th Street by running a new sanitary sewer line from the corner of Garwood Street, Northeast 9th Street, running it west, and then putting in another manhole here at Short Street and Northeast 9th Street, and then running it north to serve basically these lots that are fronting both Northeast 9th and Short Street. Again, Garwood would be served from the existing city main. And then there's an existing city sewer line that basically runs from Garwood Street along Colorado Street going west. We weren't for sure exactly how deep that line was, and so we're anticipating that probably that line would have to be relayed in order to serve these lots along Colorado Street, or that's what we assumed as part of the feasibility study. From a drainage standpoint, the plan would be to put new curb and gutter on our side of the street along Garwood, Northeast 9th, Short Street, and Colorado Street. That's the blue that we have outlined there. From a drainage standpoint, and again, this is conceptually, there hasn't been detailed calculations done, and we understand that we would have to do detailed design. The plan would be to the city has an existing storm sewer system that runs along Garwood Street going south. The plan would be to tie a new storm sewer in at this intersection of Northeast 9th and Garwood, run it west, probably put in a new storm inlet right here in the mid, kind of across from where Mill Street is. And then over here on Colorado Street, the plan would be to also run a new storm sewer system from the existing corner here where that storm sewer system, there's existing storm sewer line there, run it west and probably put that inlet right there at the intersection of Colorado and Short Street.
Mr. Sanders, would it be possible for you to show the audience what, because they're looking at your back. I'm sorry, I just want to give you guys, unless you haven't seen it. Have you seen this in the audience?
No.
Okay, so that's why I'm asking you to turn around so I can show y'all too.
Okay, from a
what?
Can't hear you.
Asking is the developer paying for all of this?
On the paving and drainage, as I mentioned, the plan would be to install new curb and gutter along Colorado Street, Short Street, and Garwood Street, as well as Northeast 9th Street back here. The plan, as far as drainage, new storm sewer, we run a new curb inlet right here across from Mill Street along the north side of Northeast 9th Street, incorporated in as part of the curb and gutter system, and run that new storm sewer line east towards Northeast 9th and Garwood Street. As far as on the north side of the subdivision, the plan would be to put in a new curb inlet right here at the northwest corner of Colorado Street and Short Street, and run a new storm sewer line east that tie into the existing system right here at Colorado Street and Garwood Street. Again, there's an existing storm sewer system along Garwood Street. There's an existing grade inlet there. That might have to be modified as part of the curb and gutter to incorporate that, but that existing storm sewer system would stay as is.
Can I ask a question on this map out there right there?
I'll allow one question.
Our house is right here. Right here, where it is across, we have a drainage here. When it rains real hard, we have to go out and clear the deep or it will flood. Always.
From a drainage standpoint, I'll go over this, show both the maps here.
My apologies in advance. The number of people here, the limitations of the room, our first meeting back. He's going to bear with us, folks. Okay, he's going to show the council and he'll turn around and show you folks. Yeah.
Did he answer your question? Who's paying for this? I didn't hear the answer.
The developer is responsible for all the costs associated with bringing water and sewer to property.
From the from the drainage standpoint, what I have here is a colored map prior to the demolition that was done back in January. We had our survey crew come out there and tie in all the paving improvements. And the purpose of that is with this project, we do not want to increase the impervious cover. part of the project. We want to make sure that the drainage that we have, existing drainage that's today, it's the same or better, not worse. What we have here is basically the red is where all the buildings were. The blue is where all the asphalt pavement was, and then the green is basically where all the concrete was. I haven't done the detailed calculations. When we did our feasibility study, we used aerial photography to get an approximation of the amount of impervious cover on the site. And based on what we calculated, it was about 55% impervious cover for the entire site, based on what exists prior to demolition. And so the plan with this proposed subdivision would make sure that this new development does not exceed 55%, so that there would not be an increase in runoff.
How do you come to these numbers when nothing came forward from the original bid process that said each house had to be over 1,500 square foot? And now we have these long lots. And you're saying that no more ground cover is going to happen. And how are you arriving at that decision?
What I'm saying is they demoed out the hospital, the parking lots, they demoed out everything which had impervious cover, which means the more impervious cover you have, the higher the rate of runoff. Now that it's all demoed, the plan will be basically you're going to have houses, you're going to have driveways, sheds, possibly. Basically, there will be a limit on the amount of impervious cover on each lot so that cumulatively it does not exceed what was there prior to demolition.
What was prior, what was?
We have already justified that these people have already had drainage issues. And you're saying that nothing's going to change for them.
What we're saying is we're not going to make the drainage issues worse.
So this will all come about. This comes about in the minimal design standards. This is later down the road after. Right. We first have to accept this plat. I mean, all this other stuff right now is down the road.
It's part of the detail design. We'll have to come back. We'll have to submit to the city. Right. The city will have their third-party engineer review what we came up with to make sure that they agree with it. But basically, we did some preliminary calculations, concept planning.
I would like for someone to address, if you would, the biggest complaint people have raised this evening that I think is a very valid concern is the look and feel of the houses that will be built there, given the narrow size of the lots. Well, that's one point I would like to address is the configuration of the lots. Seeing if there's any flexibility with the developer to make these wider so that the houses built on them could be more similar to the others in the neighborhood.
I talked to a builder today and he told me.
State your name for the audience, please.
Johnny Kolachek, I'm one of the owners. And, I talked to a builder today. He told me that 45 foot was the most built home. 45 square feet, or not square feet, 45 feet in the front. So
Where? Houston? Where?
Well, if you look down that road on Colorado, there's two houses that just have been built. Or one is being built right now. And y'all realize that that is 40, I think 60 foot, 62 foot, 63, okay. And we got this started because there's got to be a starting point. And that's when we got DEFCON. We said, okay, we want to make sure that we have we don't want to be less. So this is what he came up with. And now, yes, we have looked, but not a one of y'all, there's few people came to me and said they liked it. But not a one of y'all came to me and said, hey, why don't y'all make these lots bigger?
We just saw it.
Nobody was notified, they just saw this. We just saw this last Tuesday. I had never seen this before.
Okay.
Before last Tuesday, and now it's presented to us a week later, and we have to make a decision or you go forward. We don't have any play here. We have to accept it, what we're being told by our lawyer, and I don't understand, either we have to find a reason to reject it, or you to go back to the drawing board to have these beautiful people that are sitting out here to give you input. I've never seen this. All I know is I looked at the bid that came out July. This young man tells us he already had this drawn up in the summertime. The bid didn't come out till July 7th of what was going to happen. We have not seen any of this.
Am I responsible for that?
Jody, when you have your name on it.
Okay, hold on. I'm gonna ask you a question.
Hold on just a moment. We cannot have outbursts from the audience. If this continues, we'll have to remove people from the room. Please don't make us do that. Be quiet, respectful. Let's listen to what these people have to say.
May I speak? Since you asked me, if any one of y'all would have came to me, which I had people that came and asked me about it, I had it on my phone, I showed them how it was gonna be laid out. But there was people that ran by there every day, I seen them in their cars, never asked me one time. And if you were concerned, me being there every day, would y'all come to me and ask me? This lady right here, she sure did. She lives right across the street and she wanted to know. And I said, yes, ma'am, I want to show you exactly what we're doing. Was I hiding it? No. None of us were hiding it. I don't know.
Jody, was there a different, okay, on June 13th, you showed me a design. This was at your home. And I was excited about it. I don't remember if it was this design. I even said to you, how much do you think these lots are gonna go for? I was real excited. I even asked you, I said, are you gonna leave the pavilion? I even asked you, could I get the radio from down in the towers? I mean, I remember we had this discussion. I don't know.
Somebody got it.
Oh, good. I don't know who, if this was the same design, but that was on June 13th. You already sort of had this idea of what you were gonna do. Was this the same design?
Well, let me just tell you a little bit of the story. Bill Hector came to me and asked me, said this would be a good project for you since I'm retired. Well, me and my son decided to start it. And then a real good friend of mine, Chip from Spiral Drill, I got him to help me because he was very sharp. He drew the first plan of what she saw. Okay. And then when I went to 3 meetings with the hospital board, and their one thing was those trees have to stay. And if you would look, there is no way you can put a street or alley without rooting up those trees. I had a arborist come out and he said the 2 things that kills trees, if you take the dirt off the roots or if you add them. And I'd had that come in just because the hospital board wanted me to do that. And that's so I did we've done everything that we thought was right. It did come out to that amount of lots. Doesn't mean we have to keep them like that. It sure doesn't. But we can move them. Is that right? Yes. We can move certain amounts. One of the questions was asked or was told that if there was 2 lots bought, that you couldn't put it on another lot. Well, there's a home on Charleston there that the guy bought 2 lots. He's got a monster home there. So how did that happen? And I'll tell y'all this, there's multiple people want to buy 2 lots off on this place.
So make,
Go ahead. I'm here for questions.
then make them larger.
Huh?
Make them fewer, larger.
Okay, and this is the other thing. One of the deals is there's an elderly lady that wants to buy a lot, and she says she does not want a big lot. So here we're trying to cater to everybody, and it's kind of hard. Okay, we got questions. Do I pick them or do y'all pick them or?
Yes, sir. You have a question.
John Gilkison. I'm the owner of the Central School on Gresham. As a professional, I'm a trained listener. I think what's being missed is, let me back up. My father was a builder and a developer. So I'm going to go out on a limb and speak for this group. I don't think anyone's upset with you. Right? It's not you. It appears as though information was not provided to planning and zoning. That's either incompetence or inappropriate. I have worked with the city, Jack, Robert. I'm not native to Smithville. I didn't grow up here. I moved here from somewhere else. Thank God I did. I love this community. I would never accuse anyone up there of being incompetent. So if we take that off the table, it was inappropriate. And what this room is expressing is, for the first time, people are learning about this, and they have to be, and the council has to make a decision. And that's wrong. There is an attorney on all sides. If the builders want to, if the city council doesn't approve it tonight and it meets all the requirements, builders and developers have the right to sue the city. That's an incurred cost. I'm not suggesting you do that. I'm just saying you have that option. But what the community is saying is, why was this information not provided to planning and zoning ahead of time, as would be the normal course of business? And why is this being sprung on the community in less than 7 days? It's not about you, I promise. Okay?
And maybe I'm taking it wrong.
So my question is, why was that information not provided to planning and zoning? That is the process in the city. Planning and zoning has an opportunity to look at it, make a decision, and a recommendation to council. Why was that information not provided? That's my question. Thank you.
Address that, please. The requirements are that people are notified within 200 feet of the property for a preliminary plan. That was done. Notices were put into the paper. Notices were sent to the residents.
Nobody reads the newspaper.
Nobody takes.
Okay, well then. Okay, so information was provided to the Planning and Zoning Commission was a plat that was missing certain elements from the requirements that should have been on the plat drawing. Those requirements were addressed verbally to the satisfaction of the Planning and Zoning. I do not sit on the Planning and Zoning. Jack does not sit on the Planning and Zoning Commission. We appoint people, and they are a recommendation board. So the decision was made by the Planning and Zoning to push it forward. Because of the new legislation, the rushed accelerated schedule is based upon that legislation. We have 30 days once it's submitted to have it looked at by both B&Z and the city council. I don't like it any more than any of y'all, but that's where we are. Now let's see how we can all, as a community, come together and figure out how we go forward.
But the city's got to educate the planning and zoning commissioners, and that was a problem like 3 years ago when I was on it and was asking in writing to you to educate and have meetings and train them, and that hasn't happened.
Yeah, we had something called a pandemic. I'm doing the best I can and have with the planning and zoning committee members. You can ask any one of the new ones that are here.
It existed when I was on it. That's my point, Robert.
Thank you for your.
Excuse me a minute. I think at this point, we don't want to deteriorate into trying to find blame or who's done something wrong or haven't done something they were supposed to. At this point, we have a subdivision being planned. We badly need housing. There's some very legitimate questions as to whether or not the proposal given tonight is in the best interest of the community. I think at this point, I would like to hear from the developers if they're willing to continue to work with us and work with the citizens to understand what needs to be done to make this more acceptable to the community and move forward with revised plan.
Yes, we are. We want to work with the city. The city is the main concern to get the right
sewer, the right water, we've already talked to Jack, and we're gonna give y'all bigger water mains, and we're gonna pay for it over there on Colorado. Well, let me ask you.
Jody, I think the question, I mean, I think.
Let me just ask, how many people do you think was in that nursing home? Do you know how many bathrooms were in that nursing home and it took care of it? Well, I'm just asking, that's a simple question. There was many. And the other thing is, there was many people parking there. Many people parking there. They were coming and going all the time. And I know, I watch it every day. I go on there every day. Short Street is dangerous. Colorado is dangerous. It is. It's terrible. The one thing that we are going to do, we are going to put a sidewalk down Colorado where people that do walk, and I wouldn't walk there anyway on the road, but people do. It's terrible with their dogs and stuff because that one guy, you're right, they run 50 miles an hour, 40, 50 miles an hour on that. But we're going to put a sidewalk where they can stay off that road. And you'll say, you have to cross somewhere, but is that right? We got designed to have the sidewalk.
That'll be part of the design.
Right.
Jody, would you consider, or would you entertain maybe making it into 10 lots and making them bigger lots and just charge more for the lots?
Well,
and then people could put a really cool house there that fits in the Smithville design.
And you're exactly right. And I just told you a while ago, we have several people that want to buy 2 lots. So there you go. There you have it. So what you're saying, if we do that, make the lots bigger and charge a whole bunch more or twice the money, there's going to be people, young people that are just starting out will not be able to buy them. So do we want young people in those lots?
Are the young people that, the ones that live in the historic district? Is the historic district where the first time home buyer buys a house?
I don't know what you're talking about. That's something.
Well, I mean, you can drive around town and find out, can't you?
What do you mean?
You can tell if the people in the historic district are brand new buying their first house. Is that
Well, I don't know. There's so many people coming from California now, and they will pay that good money. Yes, but I'd love to see people that we know that own these houses. I mean, I've lived here all my life. I don't want to see strangers in our town. I mean, when we have people, their kids that growing up, you've got kids want to build homes. Well, wouldn't you want the citizens of Smithville rather than California people and everybody coming in? This is one guy right here. How long did you look till you found that home, that place to build?
Not that long. You just gotta ask, you gotta talk, you gotta be willing to pay. But that's the thing.
Willing to pay.
Willing to pay.
Well,
but my question to you is, y'all bring up the sidewalks. Where do the sidewalks go? How far off the street? And then when the 2 spots that are in front of the house are taken up, where do people park? They can't park on the sidewalk. It forces them into Colorado or short. Well, they can't park on the sidewalk because of ADA compliance.
Well, let me ask you, those two houses on Colorado just got built. Where are they parked? They just built, same thing. Where are they?
Well, maybe that's not what we want to see. More of.
There's no one,
I mean, I
complained about that.
I'll give it to you. Those houses are on 63-foot lots with the setbacks. What are they? 7.5 foot on both sides on a 50-foot lot that gives you 35 foot across to build a house. That's nothing. That's the size of my garage at my house.
And the ordinance requires in the structure. So there has to be garages and for every house that has to have garage parking. And so you're talking that the entire facade, the front facade is going to be garage on all of these lots.
No.
Explain to me how it's not going to be if you're required to have on-site parking in a structure. That's what the ordinance states. It says 2 parking spots in a structure. That means garage. If we're talking a 1,500 foot.
Were you saying besides the garage?
It says in the garage, you have to have a structure that they can park in. It's in the ordinance. So you're going to have a house that's at least 1,500 square feet. If they're building it $175 a square foot, that's $262,000 plus the lot cost and plus a garage. These teachers can't afford that. We don't pay them anything. Maybe I could, but I don't want to live on a lot that small.
So what are you telling me? Do I give them a better deal or do we just not sell to the teachers?
I don't know how you can.
So the Californians.
Are you from California?
No.
Is there any consideration of making less lots and making the current lots wider?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
That's all we're at.
That's all we want.
What are you willing to do there?
Well, what we did do some checking. And 80% of the homes on 65 foot. The fronts of the home. Would everybody be happy with that or no?
Maybe.
Maybe, well, that's the answer I need. Well, we can't build a house and then you tell me no, tear it down.
No, not the house, the plots.
Okay, well, this is the first. We don't know what none of this is gonna look like until this guy, when I get that leveled out, he's gonna put all the flags up. And then what y'all talking about, the trees, we can move those lines to, and we have to make for the trees.
And you move them and build them out.
And we move and build
Move
it.
your lines and create an alley through there so there's rear load access.
For the garage,
For the
you got
garage.
long lots.
Yes.
And it's more like $200 per square foot to build a new house right now.
Well, I don't know about the price, and it doesn't,
They're selling the property, they're not building.
Yeah, they're not.
What I'm saying is nobody that can afford a $360,000 house or whatever the cost of the lot is, wants to live on a 125 foot lot. They want something large.
They'd rather pay $100,000 for a bigger lot. That's the end of the, I mean, that's.
So why would they buy 2 lots?
Well, why don't you design
Why can't
it
they
with
buy
2
2
lots?
lots?
They can buy 2 lots, but you're not, we're saying, we want you to make it bigger, so they're forced to buy 2 lots. We don't want to see boom, 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 boom.
Oh, so what you're saying, we gotta force these people on these.
You don't have to, you're not forcing anything on people, we're trying to force you.
Yes, ma'am, you.
If y'all were not intending to put 8 or 9 houses from my house to Colorado, then why is this here? That's my question. Why did you waste the time on this bill?
Because we started out with the minimum, the basics, what it took to put a lot in here.
What it took for y'all to make money on all these lots, that's what, yeah, and I understand that, you're in the business to make the money.
No, man, let me tell you, I'm retired, and, for y'all don't know this, Brooke Herta is not in on this.
You know Brooke's not a person.
Okay.
But my question is that if we didn't have these all built up and pay this man to draw it up, what was your intent to put these number of 8 houses or my house was trying to sell? If this was not your intent, what y'all put all the money to have to draw it up?
Because we had to, I'm gonna answer you if you let me. Are you gonna let me? You're not gonna, okay. We hired this guy to do it because we had to propose this to the hospital board before we got the bid. They wanted a plat. So this is the plat that we proposed to the hospital board. That's what they wanted. They were okay with it because everything met requirements.
And they're not developing. So, they're looking at it like we are.
Are you a developer?
No, I'm not a developer.
Okay, so how do you know that's not too many houses?
Well, I'm just saying, because I can walk it off from my house to Colorado, there's 8 houses there, and across the street there's only 4.
Yes.
It doesn't take a mathematician to know that there's 50-foot lots not gonna.
And I do know, I've been there, and I know there's cars that park on the hospital side from those hospitals. There's a big bus that is right on the road, and I don't know how they let that bus stay on that road.
All I'm saying is if the city council approves it like it is, I would be ashamed and embarrassed to live in the city.
Hey, Joey, you were mentioning, Californians moving here, New Yorkers moving here. If you made, let's say you made 10 lots, people will pay $200,000 for that lot. Coming.
Mushrooms growing.
No, correct. If you design this really aesthetically beautiful, this is like Kyle, Texas right now, where the houses are boom, 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 and then, there's no space at all for anybody. So here, if you make some green space, alleys, parks. People will pay for those lots and make nice homes that will look like the historic district is a recommendation. And I think maybe you could get buy-in from the community. I know I could have buy-in, I just live right around the corner, to have something beautiful there instead of just these row houses that you're proposing. It's just a thought.
We are for you, Jody. We're for Kay, we're for the other lady. We're not for that plan. I would love to see.
Well, if y'all know the reason Kate is not here right now, he had a threat.
You had what?
A threat.
What?
Yeah, from a citizen. Yeah. And that's the reason he's not here right now. Yes. Well protected. Yeah.
People
Yeah.
that you would like to change it, and then all of a sudden, no, we're not changing it. Several people here tonight talked to Kate. I don't think anybody's threatening that I know of.
Excuse me, please. I would like to, we have some new information that, I think will probably cut a lot of this discussion short.
I'd like to ask a question. My hand's been up for almost 10 minutes.
Okay, you may ask
Everybody
your question.
going back and forth. This is not Jody's fault. I'm gonna tell you right now, that man has worked his butt off over there. I have not seen any of the other people and the buyers that are included in this. From the beginning, the thing about the trees, that's why.
What's your question?
My question is, why aren't the other owners here? Because everybody's been told, I've been told the Chip's wife and you are buyers, but everybody else, and I respect the Hurdits. But why aren't they here? And why it wasn't just, I was never notified, but I'm gonna tell you, every time I called Jody, he answered my question. Okay, and I get that because I see that every day. My concern here is I have new families that just bought 2 houses side by side, brand new families. They've got little kids. So just when y'all are looking at this, look at the safety aspect of this. I think Jody's trying. There are buses that are going to have to go. What if you have families in there? How are the buses going to get in there?
Okay, I think we've had, appreciate your point.
I don't think y'all, I'm just a little upset that we haven't been notified by the city at all.
Well, what about the big backyards? Isn't that good for the kids?
Back there. Okay.
So at this point, I would like to call the discussion to a halt, and I would like to call for a motion.
Madam Mayor, I move for denial of the requested variance. And this denial is based on regulations, Chapter 10 subdivision regulations. And you can follow this if you get a copy of it. In addition, it is in Article 3, Section 4. I will read the last sentence which applies. Lot widths shall not exceed 300 feet, nor be less than 240 feet, except in unusual cases. I will also say that the variance would be contrary to the public interest. Okay, thank you. We're talking about the plan, sorry. So, my motion is to deny.
Do I have a second?
I'll second the motion to deny it.
Anyone, okay?
The motion is denied based on the section that you just read, correct? Thank
Can we add to that
you.
section?
Yeah. There's other sections that apply in there.
Okay, I'd like to add section 3 to provide for the orderly development of the city. To ensure access to adequate amounts of light and air. I know that sounds crazy, but if you put fences up between all those properties. And then to ensure the overall health, safety, and the general welfare of the community. And that's in section 3 of the building code that's dated 1998, 1998.
Motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Tim. Okay, anyone has any energy left? We'll move on.
I'm gonna stay for the rest of the meeting. Got some good stuff. Air ambulance.
There's some other good items on the agenda.
Yeah, we'll take a 5-minute recess for the bio break and come back.
Yes, sir. Yeah, they listed 3 or 4, you just need one and not. Yes, sir. I do. It's part of
Okay, so you got three areas where
I've got a form that I'm gonna use. Thanks.
Okay. Sorry, Trish, give me you send those. That's where it's registered, I guess. Anyway, or just right. I didn't realize how much this is going on. Oh,
Yeah, that's okay.
You know, the truth of it is, good to meet you. We're all. This is what I'm here. Obviously, others have. Big boy.
And you're an Aggie too. You got a great opportunity here. We just they gotta seize it. They can make
The thing, we just need everybody to calm down and we'll figure it out.
That's exactly right. Well, I have a little saying about that, right? There's a fire in the room. Remember, there's always going to be a little error along the way.
You know, I can support the decision. Let's see what we come back with.
Oh, I'm hammered. So. All right, take care. Thank you. Yeah. Onion? Oh, yeah. Yeah. That was fun. I think that's the right call. There's no other way around it. Bill, how are you? Great. My wife, Sam. I get through that county. It didn't all work out.
He didn't have any back.
Yeah. Right.
I think we.
We gotta be on the lookout.
No instance. This is my wife, Sam. David. Right on. Adapt and improvise. Yeah, that was good.
Can we get everybody back and reconvene so we get home before midnight?
Without me.
We're still streaming.
Yes, we are.
Let's keep that in mind.
We're doing more.
Hey, we're calling business, we're calling meeting back to in order. We're moving on to item 11, discussion and action on a resolution responding to the application of CenterPoint Energy Resources Corp. South Texas Division to increase rates under the Gas Reliability Infrastructure Program, GRIP, suspending the effective date of the rate application for 45 days.
Okay, council and mayor, we belong to the Alliance of CenterPoint Municipalities, the South Texas Division, represented by a law firm who kind of watches out for us. The CenterPoint Energy is asking the Texas Railroad Commission for a GRIP rate adjustment. They want to increase the rates that they charge their customers. We do not run the gas company. but we do have impact on when the rates can be effective, and that's what this resolution that you will be considering is going to do. We can postpone the rate increase, which is 10 to 15% higher, by 45 days. If you choose not to approve this resolution, the new rates will become effective on May 3rd, 2021. If you choose to pass this resolution, we can suspend the rates until June 17th, 2021. So basically, the residential customer will receive an increase of $2.33 per month and $4.78 per month for small commercial services. So again, about a 10 to 15% increase in the rate unless you vote to suspend these dates. Questions?
I'm thinking we're gonna suspend these because of snowbid. And the gas was crazy during that period of time. So let's give our people in the community a little bit longer time. Is that really what we're looking at?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
You ready for a motion, Mayor?
We're ready for a motion.
Madam Mayor, I move that we approve a resolution responding to the application of Centerpoint Energy Resources Corporation, South Texas Division, to increase rates under the Gas Reliability Infrastructure Program, commonly called RIP, suspending the effective date of this reapplication for 45 days until June 17th, 2021.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Item 12 is discussion and action on the annual audit for the 2019-2020 fiscal year budget. And Jack Clark, you're on now.
And thank you very much for your patience tonight. This is as long as you stayed for the council meeting in Smithville.
He's old too.
Sorry.
I don't like that knowledge. Yes. I was telling Robert here in the time when I come over here that y'all are in the middle of some hot public hearing or something, and I just sit and listen to what's going on in Smithville. I really missed coming over here. It's lots of fun. I do appreciate the opportunity to present this audit. My presentation was originally planned to be an hour and a half long. I want to do y'all a favor. I'm going to cut to the chase. I want you to look at the table of contents. And I'll just identify some sections that maybe you can look at later or when you get time. And as always, if you have questions, you can call me direct. I'll go over it with you, or I'll come back and make more presentation. I have no problem ever coming to Smithville. So if you need me, you call me. Page 1 is the independent auditor's report. That's what you pay the big bucks for. That's what we say in our opinion, everything is fine. The next section, page 5, is management discussion and analysis. This is where you can go to get financial information in words and not columns of numbers. It's a very good section to go to. And within that, basically, following that, we have what we call a GASB 34 presentation. And the only thing I want to call your attention to on that one is on page 17. What I refer this to as this is an upside down financial statement. It starts out, look on page 17 particularly. The first column just tells you all your expenditures, then your revenue from various business sources. And what it tells you is if you go about halfway down, you see that you have a negative $197,000 before you even open the doors. But that's sort of key because you really is 1.3 million because you transfer in $1,107,000 from the utility fund. So that's to me is sort of a revenue source. It's an operating transfer in, but it reduces the amount of money you have to come up with. How do you make up that $197,000? You make it up with property taxes, sales taxes, various other sources of revenue.
And then if you go down third line from the bottom, third, in the last column, third number from the bottom, 2,725,000. That's how much your net position increased this year over last year. And that's a good number, even if half of it is a transfer in from the utility fund. So good. I've never seen one like that before. No one around the business, which you can make up, but because of the operating transfer in, you call it correct. The other area in the financial statement, just on footnotes, is page 35, which are the notes to the financial statements. This is another place where you're going to get good information on the status of the system of the city and how it's working. It will show you capital outlays, new capital outlays, reduction of capital outlays, your depreciation for the utility fund, and so on and so forth. It will also give you your debt service requirements over 5 years and your fixed assets, capital outlays. If you use those two sections, it helps you plan budgetarily what you've got to come up with in debt service from year to year. And it will show you, there's a footnote in there about your pension. If you want to get really bored and go to sleep real quick, take this home with you and start reading about the pension plan, because I guarantee you this is sleep. The only other sections I want to call your attention to for later is on page 89 and 91. These are your federal programs, the grants. You all did receive enough grants of over 750,000 for us to have to do a single audit, which is a little bit more information than if you look on page 89, you see a list of them. You had 2,773,000 grant expenditures. So somebody's done a good job of grant writing. The pages I will call your specific attention to is if you go over on page 25. This is your general fund revenue expenditure report, and what I always look at fund balances because I like 3 months worth of unreserved fund balance. If you go down to the very bottom of the third column, the actual column, you'll see that your net change in fund balance was $415,000 positive. That's added to your beginning fund balance of 1.3 million. And voila, you got 1.775 million. And I will tell you, I've been with this all the way back to those guys in the 1800s. And this is as good a fund balance as I've ever seen this city. So the financial section is doing really well. I'm not sure about the city manager portion. Robert knows I've got to pick on somebody and it's this year. So, but I do have to say it's an excellent job. On the next page, on 27, you'll see that the utility fund only increased down in the bottom, changing that position of 25,000. But it is what it is, and the city's utility fund is the emphasis for a lot of your ability to do the things that you do. Because in the general fund, only 56% of your revenue comes from property taxes. 24% comes from sales tax. So this is, I remember in the old days, I used to tell you, don't you ever go $1 million in the operating transfers out, because we were always scared, just like in Lampasas, the wholesale customer, that you're becoming too reliant on the utility fund to fund your operations, and then the utility fund goes, now what do you do? Maintain a good level expenditure out of the utility fund or the general fund, and you have really been able to maintain a pretty smooth growth pattern in the general fund. So again, good job. Finance. I don't think there's anything else. I really don't want to make you spend a lot more time. I don't have an interest tonight, and I'm sort of holding it. As I said, excellent financial statement, excellent job. There were
only 7 journal entries. I remember when I used to make 40 and 50 journal entries out here. So now it's 7, and she's going to think she deserves a pat on the back, but I'm sure she can be better. I guess I just keep up the good work. And it's, as I said, it's, keep moving from California bothers me a little bit, but I like to stay where you are. I love this city. It's a great city to live in, and even in their houses, we're getting broken. I just heard someone write a comment to our editor that land masses are going to grow, but let's not grow like marble falls. So growth is good in some situations. But I do appreciate the opportunity of doing this on. How much I enjoy it. And I've just got to off and on. I don't know who else. I heard somebody else was leaving. Yeah, already gone. Yeah. Getting 3 or 4 new ones. I don't know who's breaking a whole new crew next year. Assuming you rehire us.
We're gonna have some lots for sale here pretty soon.
I do appreciate it.
Well, thank you. It's always a pleasure to work with you, and we appreciate the job you've done for Smithville for several years. At this point, I'll call for a motion on approval of the annual audit report for the 2019-2020 fiscal year budget.
I make a motion that we accept the annual audit for the 2019-2020 fiscal year budget.
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Next item is discussion and action on entering into a contract with Singleton Clark and Company, PC, for the 2020-2021 fiscal year audit.
Can I get out the back door? Can I speak on that?
You can't, Bimbo can.
All right, council and mayor, approval of this agenda item will allow the city to continue to utilize Singleton, Clark and Company for our annual audit services.
Do I hear a motion?
Madam Mayor, I move that we approve entering into a contract with Singleton, Clark and Company, PC, for the 2020-2021 fiscal year audit.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously.
Give me Mr. Clark, you're in.
Okay, moving on to item 14, discussion and action on renewing an agreement between the city of Smithville and PHI Air Medical to provide air ambulance service to the citizens of Smithville. I wish our big crowd had been here to hear this, because I think this is a fantastic benefit. Yes, we probably should have.
Well,
Robert, you want to remind us what this is?
certainly. The PHI Air Medical, we first entered into contract with them last year. Basically, it's an insurance policy for all of our residents for a premium of $13,552 per year. Any resident in Smithville who was transported by PHI Air Medical can be reimbursed 100%, or actually avoid cost completely, of that air medical transport. Typically, an air medical transport in an urban area like Austin is $10,000 to $15,000. The average cost for air medical transport from Smithville to Austin is $45,000 to $50,000 a ride. The premium is based upon the number of households from our residential utility customers times $8. There is an option that residents can choose to participate in for an additional $45 per year. Every one of the household can be covered outside of Bastrop County. So if you're on travel in another state and you are transported by a PHI Air Medical aircraft, it's covered. To let you know some stats, there were 9 calls for air transport, 5 actually were taken. So 5 residents in Smithville received benefit from this contract. So, 5 times 50,000, that's $250,000 that's been spent, that's now covered because of our $13,552 premium. So I think it's a benefit. I recommend that you strongly consider approving this for our citizens.
But also add the $13,000 premium. It's covered. Would you tell us how that's covered?
Certainly, there's some backstory to this. PHI Air Medical contacted me last year. They were changing the rates. It's going to be higher, less service, more work. And I said, nope, I'm not going to go with you. They went back to the drawing board and came up with a plan that I approved. The thing is, this was not a budgeted expense because they pulled the shenanigans right before our budget year. So I did not include it in our current budget. However, having worked with them and coming back to a very good plan that's probably only $200 more than it was last year, I am recommending that you approve this unbudgeted expense for the benefit of our citizens. It will be paid for by film permits and building permits.
Council, I'll entertain a motion.
Madam Mayor, I move that we approve the renewal of an agreement between the city of Smithville and PHI Air Medical to provide air ambulance service to the citizens of Smithville.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
I also want to let you know that there will be cards distributed to all the residents as opposed to a sticker. And there'll be a link or a little QR code that you can hit on an announcement that goes on the utility bills to take you to the website where you can purchase the upgrade plan. The action of this council tonight, the contract will go into effect on May 1st through April 30th of next year. And again, the citizens will definitely benefit should they even take an air transport ride.
Robert.
Yes, sir.
Can I ask you a question about that? Like, you're not to the hospital, is that correct? We're not talking fees, we're talking, when with the citizens, obviously you're going to need the service, but is it a car wreck or what is the,
Okay.
You understand what I'm asking?
Yes, I think I do.
I'm not asking.
No, it's okay. If a Canadian or someone on scene in a car wreck determines that you need lifeline, we're going to call them. If you're at the towers and someone codes and needs to be flown, they're going to call PHI.
I think this is awesome. It's a great benefit. Sure, you said it was 5 last year.
Yeah,
5 from this. That's great. Appreciate your work on it.
Thanks.
Okay, item 15 is discussion and action on a resolution amending the commercial garbage rates. Robert.
Yeah, I wanted to remind folks that, by the way, the long-awaited 96-gallon poly carts distribution started today. For the last 3 days, and everybody should have their cart by Wednesday. God, run up the creek, don't rise. To this point, when we renew the contract with Waste Management Inc., we have to officially adopt the new rates. If you recall, we were not increasing the residential rate of $43.17 per month for twice a week service, bulk and leaf and limb. Although we did incur a cost at the city, that cost was not transferred to the residents. However, on the commercial end, that was a 15 to 18% increase reflected in your council packets. 2 yard, 4 yard, 6 yard, those rates are indicated in your binders.
Council, if there are no more questions, I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion that we accept action on a resolution amending the commercial garbage rates.
No.
I'll second your motion.
The motion and second, I'll call for a vote. Please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Item 16 is discussion and action on the approval of a $200,000 line of credit for the Smithville Chamber rebuild with a 5-year, 3.25% fixed rate, annual payments of $40,000 plus interest.
Okay, Council and Mayor, this was this initiative was started, I would say 45 days ago to try to find some additional funding because the expenditures of the rebuilding of the visitor center, some of the upgrades that were needed, we weren't sure we had the money. And although it's been paid for by insurance, we wanted to ensure that the project could finish without having to go to fundraise to complete the building. So a line of credit was the best way to do that. Since then, at the time we applied, I think only $65,000 to $80,000 were spent. We have spent to date $192,000 on the Chamber Visitor Center. It was anticipated it would be $250,000. We have things to do like a fire detection system, a surveillance system, landscaping, furniture, fixtures, and fit up on the inside that still need to be done. Having said that, I cannot express enough how the community has stepped up. All of the tradespeople are donating all of their labor, if not some of the materials, to rebuild this chamber building. So I want to go ahead and request that you approve the line of credit, and here's why. All of these expenditures are going against our operating fund and general fund. We just spoke and confirmed with First National Bank that the expenditures that have already been spent, the $200,000 line of credit is enough to cover these costs, thereby reducing the unbudgeted, unexpected expenditures that we've had thus far. So that can be paid out over a 5-year period. If we don't use $200,000, that's fine too. But I want it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. We want to see this building finished.
Everything over time, the building costs, concrete, everything has increased since we had received our numbers a year ago.
Good point.
So a lot of things have changed for the budget lines.
I have a question in the budget, general fund revenue recap, where it says unassigned fund balance for chamber rebuild, 80,000. That means there's 80,000 sitting there?
That was our insurance check payment.
Oh, okay.
Will we receive that correction there?
Yes, that was the insurance money that we received in the prior fiscal year. So to show that that was being used in this year.
Okay.
Using the expenditures this year.
Okay.
To show you that it was still being balanced out. And as far as being on the chamber board, I appreciate that we're stepping up to make this a state-of-the-art facility that will also have a conference room and things that the public can use and have everything here that they'll need to have.
You don't get the opportunity to redo this very often. I don't want another opportunity.
No. Actually, it's very inexpensive for what you're saying it's going to cost. Really, for
the big picture.
Yeah.
In that line of thinking, Robert, I'd also like to point out that when we get the video surveillance system, let's get a high-end 4K surveillance system, which has more resolution, please.
You said 250 bills?
275. Okay, council, any other questions?
All right, I'll entertain a motion.
One other comment, I guess, is the idea that you do it right the first time is, I think, what we need to do. I'm from way back at the rec center days, when we're running, needing money, and we basically, well, what do? You just, I said, what are you gonna do? Build a building and put nothing in it. So, we went out and borrowed money at that time to finish it up. And this is the right thing to do. When you open that building, people want to get press. You don't want to walk in and out, whatever, just barely get it open. So I do appreciate the opportunity to get that done.
And I want to thank Mr. Jack Page for acting as a general contractor manager.
We have our Jack Page.
Yeah, when I was in the meeting where this decision was made, of course, the first thing was to make sure that we ended up with quality product. And we didn't want to have to rely on fundraising to slow down the pace. So we thought with a line of credit It's there if we need it. We don't have to use it if we don't need it. As fundraising occurs, payments can be made against it.
Mayor Morgan, I'll go ahead and, make a motion to, approve the 200,000 line of credit for the Smithville Chamber of Commerce rebuild with a 5-year, 3.25% fixed rate, the annual payment of 40,000 plus interest.
I'll second that motion.
A motion, a second, all in favor, please say aye. Motion passes unanimously. Item 17, discussion and action on awarding engineering services contract for the reparation of the city's 2021-2022 Texas Community Development Block Grant application and subsequent engineering contract if funded.
Okay, Council and Mayor, this is another opportunity for us for a $350,000 grant for wastewater and or water improvement projects throughout the city. It does require a 15% match, which is what we'll have to commit to in another item in a moment. But as far as these requests for qualifications go, we put notices in the paper to ask for engineering firms to submit their statement of qualifications as to why we should select them. Here are the packets that were delivered. Obviously too big to put into your packets, but I'd be happy to let you know, let you take a look at them later. We did have an evaluation team that consisted of myself, Jennifer Lynch, Jack Page, and for the administration, Mayor Morgan, we did evaluate 4 engineering firms. The scores are in your tabulation sheets in your binders. And we evaluated these consultants on experience, work performance, capacity to perform as criteria for us to evaluate and select the most appropriate engineering service provider. That turned out to be Fiscal Engineering, Inc., with a score of 99, followed by KSA Engineering and Stranded Associates, who were tied at 96, and John B. Mercer had an 86-point score. Those evaluation sheets are also available for you if you look at them to see the criteria with which we evaluated these consultants on. And again, you can take a look at these if you like. Any questions?
If there are no questions, Robert, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, Ms. Mayor, I'm sorry, Mayor. I make a motion awarding engineering services contract for the reparation of the city's 2021-2022 Texas Community Development Block Grant TXCDBG application and subsequent engineering contract.
I'll second.
To Becca.
Have a motion and a second, all in favor, please say aye. Motion carries unanimously.
Congratulations, Tim.
Make the evening worthwhile for you. Okay, item 18 is discussion and action on awarding the administrative service contract for preparation of the city's 2021-2022 Texas Community Development Block Grant application and subsequent administration contract if funded.
Okay, Council and Mayor, some of the process was followed for the administration/grant services consultant. We sent out electronic requests for proposals, and unlike the RFQ, a grant administration services consultant, we deal with cost. How much is this going to cost us? That's not the same for engineering firms. Long story short, Langford was the only grant services, administrative services consultant to provide a packet, and as such, I recommend them for approval to help us apply for and manage the TDA CDBG grant application process.
I would just say that Langford has done many of these contracts for us before and has done consistently excellent job. There are no questions of Robert on this. I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move approval on awarding the administrative service contract for preparation of the city's 2021 to 2022 Texas Community Development Block Grant TXCDBG application and subsequent administration contract funded to Langford Community Management Services.
A motion, a second, all in favor, please say aye. Motion passes unanimously. Item 19, discussion and action on a resolution authorizing the submission of an application for the 2021-2022 TXCD-BG Community Development Grant Fund competition.
Councilman Mayor, as you are seeing, there's a lot of paperwork involved with these grants, right? So this is another one of those I's you have to dot and T's you must cross. Approving this resolution will authorize the city manager to act on behalf of the city of Smithville, giving signature authority to the city manager for all matters involved in the submittal of our application. It will also commit the $52,000 match to 15% from the utility fund as our portion of whatever improvement project that has yet to be determined. It's either going to be a water or a sewer project. We have to only have $52,500. So that's what this resolution will do should you choose to approve it.
Is this one of the ones Joe writes?
No,
Do you sign up on it?
No, this is one Langford. You just hired Langford.
Langford guy writes this one.
Langford, yeah, writes this.
Okay, yeah, that's a lot of work. Yeah. So you sign off on it, just what we're voting on.
That's correct. And committing the 15% match.
Question on, you don't have any idea from the project?
We do. We have to see the feasibility for each. One would be an upgrade to the water plant at Faucet to make improvements there. And the other would be dealing with Gasley sewer plant to make improvements at that facility, which are desperately needed. So there are several moving parts to this. I'm also working on with some Corona Relief Fund money that should be coming. So if I don't use the CDBG on the sewer, I can use it for the water. But we wanted to run it in the manner that gave us the most flexibility. So.
Morgan, I'll go ahead and make a motion. Make a motion to approve this resolution that will authorize the city manager to act on behalf of the city of Smithville, which will give him signature authority for all matters involved in the submittal of 2021-2022 Texas CDBG application. The city will commit a 15% match, which is $52,500 from the utility fund, and a cash contribution for the activities of this infrastructure improvement project. Motion and a second, all in favor, please say aye. Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to item 20, discussion and action on amending the general provisions ordinances, chapter 1, City of Smithville Code of Ordinances, adding section 1.2000 city seal.
Councilman Mayor, this is required to adopt the new official city seal. We have a sample here. But you have to do this by ordinance. This becomes an official. What do you say? Chicken. The record state that my city secretary said chicken. This becomes an official symbol of the city, so it has to be approved by y'all. It's late on YouTube. It's late.
Only the city secretary. She's our authorized user of the official seal.
On that account, I make a motion on amending the general provision ordinance chapter 1. Oh, then you should have action on amending the general provisions ordinance chapter 1, City of Smithville Code of Ordinance, adding section 1.2000 city seal.
I'll second that.
A motion and a second, all in favor, please say aye. Motion carries unanimously. Item 22 is very similar. This is discussion and action on an ordinance amending the municipal court ordinance, chapter 7, City of Smithville Code of Ordinances, section 7.105, procedure B seal.
Councilman Mayor, just like the previous item, This is required to adopt the official seal of the municipal court. And it looks very similar. It just says municipal court. And if you're making a motion, please speak into the microphone for the people who are still with us on YouTube.
Mayor Morgan, I make a motion that we go ahead and amend the ordinance to allow the new municipal court seal to be adopted. Oh, in accordance with section 7.105 procedure B, seal.
OF/IN.
I guess I should know that, but that's
We didn't. All right, fantastic. There you go, thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Okay, we're down to the final item on the agenda. Ms. White, will you tell us about the status of the current budget financial report?
All right, y'all have for you the financial report for the March 2021. As you can see, the revenues are at $7 million of the $12.4 million budget. Overall, the city is 400,000 to the good at the moment. General fund again looks good. The reserves are holding steady in the general fund and improving in the utility fund. So hopefully we can continue on that path. If y'all have any questions?
On the utility, that grant that we ended up getting from St. David's Foundation, that really helped us during that time that they gave us money for utilities.
For the utility investment?
Yeah, and people are doing better now.
And there's another one that we're working with to try to distribute, just so you know.
Nice. Okay, thank you.
Can't tell you. And again, it's nice to know that the fuel cost, if you look at the monthly report, it's going to be lower this coming month. A lot of people suffered. And just keeping your house warm when it's 0 degrees, you're going to use more consumption. That consumption equates more money, and a lot of irate customers wondering what the heck the city of Smithville is doing. Collectively, as a whole, our usage as a city doubled during the storm. Okay.
How about on the water usage? Was that also?
We did have an increase in water because of the busted pipes.
Right.
We tried to work with the customers so that wherever there was a water break, we didn't charge them the corresponding sewer rate.
Oh.
So whatever your last sewer rate was, the winter averaging, that was the last month of the winter averaging. Fortunately, it didn't play into what you're going to pay in the future. So that was good that we were able to reduce, not charge people for additional sewer based upon the water usage, because it didn't really reflect reality.
Okay.
It wasn't going down the toilet, is what I'm telling you.
Correct. Okay, I'll ask you after the meeting. Well, the clinic lost 45,000 gallons of water, and that bill was $950, which we paid.
45,000.
45, we had busted pipes.
$3.50 per week.
Honest to goodness, yeah.
There are no further questions on the financial report. I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I'll make a motion that we approve the March financial.
Your motion is second. All in favor, please say aye. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, council, for, I think we've set a record for the longest meeting ever.
Jason, thank you very much for coming out.
No, thank you for having me. I'm sorry, kind of just show up and I didn't know who was. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Thank you for showing, staying.
And staying.